Start stream. Now we streaming.
Hey, how many brushes does Ashes have?
All right. So I got this Stream Deck. So now I've got buttons that can do this. I've got like the ability to go between different scenes at a buttons press. But I have like no hotkeys, and then I was noticing that it like when I press it, like little white dots show up on the screen when I hit it, and then slowly fade away, and it makes me think like I'm breaking it like instantly, and I'm wondering if there's like moisture in my Stream Deck. Like, I guess, is this just a Florida thing? I'm too deep into Florida to be able to use a Stream Deck without breaking it on day one. So yeah, there's my email. Great, fucking awesome. I love streaming. I love being able to accidentally share my email to people over and over again. So yeah, the part of the Stream Deck thing is that I can now, like, when I need to like hide my screen, I have buttons to do it instead of fumbling around and like accidentally sharing my email over and over again. All right, what do I need to get set up?
I don't think you shared it to Discord.
What did I not share?
I don't think you shared your screen to Discord. So at the very
least, yeah, the three people in Discord didn't see it, but the VOD on Twitch. I'm just gonna keep calling attention to it. That'll make it better. All right, it's your screen.
That's fair.
It's your screen. All right, bit by bit, I'm getting there. Arenas Arte. You never had humidity problems with tech in Miami? Well, I don't know, maybe your AC works better than mine. All right, so today we're doing things right. We're doing it so right. There's a brand new channel on the Discord, and that channel has all the study material in it. Let's see. Does this Twitch scene work? No, of course it doesn't. Why would it? There it is. So you can see here that there is a new channel called Today is the Day. And in Today is the Day, there is going to be a new post every day. And that post is going to have 4 images in it. One of them is going to be an anime image. Another one is going to be a landscape. Another one is going to be a photo portrait. And another one is going to be a masterwork. And you just pick one of those things, and that's your study for the day. So instead of having to come up with what am I going to study today, you just go to Today is the Day, and you go there. And, you know, instead of putting it off or saying that you're going to do it some other day, you just say that today's the day. You're going to do it. Just take 30 minutes. I'm spending like 2 hours on these, but honestly, 30 minutes is probably the appropriate amount of time to spend doing the study. Hey, Fajodo, how's it going? And yeah, and so now, like, I didn't upscale these or format them in any way. These are just like pulled out of my reference folder, and I'm going to be updating this every single day with 4 images. And so if you want to do daily studies, whether you are doing them live with me or you're doing them whenever, you can go and grab one of the reference images out of the Today is the Day folder or the channel, and then do the study, and then the dailies channel's right below it with the brain next to it. I got to add some emojis to brighten up our Discord. But I promised I was going to do this on the community stream on Friday, and it's done. So now I'm going to pull from there. I've got the source folder with all the real JPEGs in it. Where'd I put those? Where are they? Okay, there they are.
Pete, how do you feel about PNGs with transparent backgrounds?
I think PNGs with transparent backgrounds are the real PNGs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree, but I mean for the purposes of the reference folder.
Oh, for the purpose of the reference folder? No, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of figured. They're good, though. Maybe I could find them not PNGs. Oh, this one's awesome. This chick with the levitating cats. Unfortunately, you're getting like my taste in anime because I'm just going through my reference folder.
Listen, I can fire you at any moment. All right.
All right. Got it.
You give me some bad JPEGs. It's gonna be lights out. All right. Now
better not be saved as a web.
See, look at this.
File.
I can go. I can say, hey, we're looking at Discord. Hey, we're looking at my desktop. Button push. I'm fucking killing it over here. You can see who's talking in the Discord because all the things are coming up. One of these days, I'm going to be like a real streamer. This is going to be great.
I mean,
I like all of these. I think I might do all of these today.
You're going to do all of them? Damn, you're going to get
Yeah.
good like 4 times as fast as the rest of us. Guaranteed.
that
They're all
works.
great.
More studies
They're like
than
mixing
one.
different styles. You're like, oh, I'm an anime artist
Yeah.
mixed with a master study. And
I'm kind of like if, you know, Michelangelo was also like the best anime artist of all time, but only painted landscapes.
yeah, dude, I'm like Michelangelo, but like goes to anime cons.
Just like hangs out in the Midwest and keeps up on the latest stuff popping up on Crunchyroll.
Yeah, dude, Michelangelo was definitely a One Piece fan.
Yeah.
Trying to find some stuff that's not just like Akihiko Yoshida, Hamsung Chul, or like Cinevalid. Like,
See, I was like, oh, I've got to keep it so that the masterworks are like a variety of different, like, what do you call them? Artists. Oh my God. I went to the gym again today, so my brain, I'm coming in at a deficit for sure.
right.
I spent the whole weekend like not able to like move my arms properly because I'm like I like 30 minutes in there and I'm destroyed for the next several days. Flower Crown Gaming, hey, first time chatter, welcome. Reminds me of the artist who recreates classic paintings with modern characters. I did that once where I put one of my own characters in a classic painting. It's in the painting I copied is actually in the masterwork folder, so it'll pop up some other day. It's a good idea. It's a really good idea. Not necessarily with your own characters. I mean, the idea of doing it with like, you know, you just do a Caravaggio, but you put Mega Man in there, and it's a good idea. I was watching, I'm doing competitive research right now. And so I was watching this weekend a bunch of schoolism videos because I'm trying to figure out how to make my own educational content. So I'm trying to like, I'd gone and written a bunch of stuff like earlier in this year, and I wasn't confident that like it's any good. And I realized that I had never actually like watched a lot of tutorials before. So I bought a schoolism subscription this weekend, and I started watching some of their tutorials. And there was one that was like for expressive portrait painting, which is exactly the thing that I've been kind of struggling to figure out here during these study streams. So I watched like 6 hours of it while I played with my conveyor belts. And I am looking forward to giving some of that stuff a try, see if I've managed to get better by watching tutorials. And I want to start doing some tutorial reacts on this channel, where I want to look through some like some YouTube and maybe TikTok art tutorials, and I'm gonna give you my feedback on like if there's anything that stands out to me as like really smart or really, really dumb. And I'm gonna try to be nice to people because I don't want to just be like shitting on a bunch of other hardworking creators, but like I'm curious how it's gonna go. Plus, React content's like, you know, it's kind of like of the moment, right? It's part of the time ghost. Das Zeitgeist.
End up getting canceled along with XQC.
Yeah, React Meta. Yeah, I'm gonna listen. If you can say my name and XQC in the same sentence, I'm doing something right. At least for the time being. Wait until all the allegations come out, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, remember that time that P compared himself to XQC? I think that was our first red flag.
Yeah, dude. Major ego.
In the
Aiming
end.
on a bad time.
Yeah. Where's my $10 million kick contract, huh? Kick. I just want to put it out. I just want to put it out there in case anyone from Kick is in listening right now. One of the 10 people that's currently watching the live stream. I will exclusively stream on Kick for $10 million. Just wanted to make that clear. You know what? I will throw everything I'm currently working on in the garbage and start my career over for $10 million. You can get like there's a lot of lines in the sand that I'm not willing to cross, except for $10 million. It completely changes the conversation.
Money talks.
And bullshit walks.
I made this new brush recently. It's like a landscaping brush, and it's amazing. I'm loving the way it moves.
Oh, you just remind me. I said right before I was streaming, I'm going to use some new brushes today. And then I proceeded to like not do that. Let's see. I need to remap my tablet pen. I have my forward button marked to the lasso tool, which has worked out pretty good. But I don't have a way of right clicking. So let's see. Clicks. I think right click on the rear rocker. Which okay. Oh, there it goes. It's just lagging like crazy. All right. Now I've got access to it. So I downloaded the Ash brushes and I downloaded the Yiming Lee brushes, and I don't know which are which. They're just all in a big jumble over here.
They should have their own folder when you download.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I did it in CS6, and I just added brushes, and now they're in a big pile. That's a good idea, putting them in folders. I downloaded CC again, thinking I was going to do CC, like so that the version of Photoshop I'm using is not like different from everybody else's who's watching me. But I'm not doing that today. So the problem I have with a lot of brushes is that my instinct is that pressing harder should always just make the brush bigger. But in like this case, pressing lighter also makes it more transparent. So this influences me to want to like smash my brush into the surface over and over again.
Cool. Pressing harder makes your brush bigger.
Yeah. So I have it so that it's all size flow. So there's no opacity control on the pressure sensitivity at all for my brushes. Mm-hmm. So that when I press light, all it does is make smaller marks. So what I tend to do is I tend to oversize my brush, make it really big, and then use a really, really light touch, and it increases the amount of like stamina I have in my hand. I don't like wear my hand out and get hand cramps.
You know, that's a very smart way to go about it. That's like more traditional.
It's also it mirrors like the behavior of a classical paintbrush, because like with a paintbrush, like you know, if you've got like a round paintbrush, it's like just a light touch will be just the tip, and give you a nice fine line. And then if you like smush it down, it smushes into a larger mark. And to me, that's like exactly what I want.
I need to figure out how to change that actually, because that's a really smart way to go about it.
Yeah. This is one of those color dynamic ones where it's like it does foreground, background color depending on whether or not you more of the foreground color if you press harder. It's interesting. I also don't have I don't think my tablet does rotation, because I'm not using the pen with like the flat nib. So if there's any rotation parameters in the brush, it's not going to work for me.
Yeah, I don't use rotation in my brushes either. It feels inconsistent.
Yeah, it does feel inconsistent. I can never quite pin down like a moment when it's doing the wrong thing. It just never feels 100% like it's doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this one's kind of nice. I think this is a Yiming Lee brush, though. My machine does lag a little bit with it. It's got kind of a hard edge and a soft edge. It does. It doesn't have a lot of lead in. I wonder if I turn the flow down. I get the one of the reasons why I also don't do so much. Whoa, what the fuck? Oh. The shift numbers are reversed. Okay. Oh, there we go. Wow. Ooh.
It's pretty.
Getting some crunchy bits. Why does it look like a snake? What is happening? So yeah, it's the number keys adjust the flow rather than the also it's got this thing. It's got a little bit of opacity control. It's like the Yiming Lee brushes look like they have a mixture of both opacity and size flow on them. With the flow turned down, it's got these weird tails on them where they have these little tiny like nubs kind of poking off. Unless I hit it with like a really hard attack, and then it'll end with a wider stroke, but it'll trail out a little bit. Interesting. Maybe if I'm messing around with this, I'm gonna add it to my palette. Call it a snake brush. But I have to hit the shift key if I want to adjust the opacity on it, because it's got maybe if I do this. Yeah, that does what I want. So I can turn the flow down. Maybe that's about right. 30%. And now I've got the opacity controls on the numbers. Okay. Now we're cooking. So what are you guys up to?
Drawing the anime lady.
Drawn the anime lady.
Yeah.
I'm doing the landscape.
Oh man, my favorite thing about Omen's accent is that he'll call things that in English aren't usually referred to, like nouns, like with the in front of them. Like it's not.
That's got to be
Like,
a property of Russian.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I've noticed all like Russians do it sometimes. They'll be like, like they won't say like when you're playing a barbarian in Baldur's Gate 3. They'll be like when you are playing the barbarian in Baldur's Gate 3.
Flawless Russian accent, by the way.
Yeah, I was like, who's talking now?
Yeah, is Omen
You have
in
to
with
do
us right
this
now?
Slavic- Yeah. That's from playing D&D.
Working on your game
Oh.
story.
Oh my god, I want to jump off a bridge.
What'd you do?
I'm painting on the background.
Oh no! No.
Ah, dude, that's.
I never touched the background layer. Do you know you can unlock it?
Yeah, no, I never touched it either. But
Oh.
I'm like, fuck.
Yeah,
That's why I was like, oh, damn.
I was watching this. There's so many times when I'm watching like a demo, like an art demo, and the instructor will come with some bit of knowledge, but it'll be in service of sidestepping their lack of knowledge about another feature. Like there's this one guy who's like, you always have to start off by copying your background layer. And I was like, no, you don't. And he's like, yeah, well, you need to because it has different properties than the other layers. You may not know that, but it has different properties than the other layers, and it's like it has its opacity locked. And I was like, yeah, I know, but you can unlock it. And he's like, no, you can't. I'm like,
No, that's what I just did. I just made another layer, painted it, and locked it, and now that's my background. It's not too bad.
I almost always work on the top layer, so I'm almost never on the wrong layer, which is very nice for me.
Oh man, Pete, I've been trying some of the like painting techniques you recommended, like using like different blending modes and stuff like that to get like more saturated transitions and stuff like that. Man, it results in complicated layer stack if you're not merging it down.
Yeah. So what most people do is they like if you do the thing where you have like your guy on like you've got an element or something that's like on a layer by itself, and then you are adding highlights and shadows and stuff on like different like layers with like a clipping mask. You just go like, okay, well the highlights are going to be here and they're all going to be on screen, and then you have like this stack of like clipping masks like all grouped down into one like silhouette. Like then you start needing folders in order to like keep it organized. Like some people, that's like the only way they can imagine working in Photoshop. But for me, this is why I keep everything on the top layer, is because like the only times I switch layers are when I start to get that hinky feeling where I'm about to screw up the painting. I want to try something and I think I have a real shot at messing it up. Or if I am changing blending modes. Because you can't, unless you merge it all the way down to the background, you basically can never merge blending modes down into a normal layer.
Yeah.
So because of that, a lot of people, they just always merge it down into the background. So they just merge it down into one layer because it allows them to dynamically switch blending modes without creating a complicated layer stack. But I just don't switch blending modes that often. And so I can go like, several hours just working in normal, and then I'll move over and change blending mode and work for like a few minutes, and then I'll go back into normal and spend a few hours there. And like that to me is the secret for not ending up with like an unreasonable number of layers.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that makes sense. And I like. It's like good advice, right? The thing about like using blending mode for sure.
But
well, the problem is I'm an anime artist, and like people, I've done tons of studies of like people's anime art or whatever, and sometimes there's like interesting looks that like I want to experiment, but like the way a lot of anime artists use clipping masks like heavily. And you get some like very complicated layer stacks and stuff like that. And like when you're merging everything down all the time, it does seem to shut off certain options. But there might be ways of like working around that. I don't know. I just need to like do it more and experiment with. That's always what it boils down to.
Yeah, process is one of those things that's so personal. It's like, yeah, I can tell you about all the different things that I do and the reasons why I do them. But it doesn't mean that they're a good idea for you or for anyone. I mean, it might be that I'm literally the only person on the planet that should be painting this way, and everybody else has like better solutions to these problems. Oh my God, doing this kind of big fill on here with like this is lagging so bad. I'm never going to be able to like fill in areas with the snake brush. All right.
Yeah, that delay is real.
Yeah, back to the sponge for this.
And I've been getting a lot of people asking me for like critiques and advice and stuff in the Discord chat, and it's making me realize how bad I am at teaching.
No, I mean, okay, maybe, but what if the other option is that it's just showing you that you have better taste in teaching than you like have the ability to perform right now? Like that you're not done. Like if you think you're bad, you're not dealing with a terrible Dunning-Kruger problem, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a good sign, I guess.
It's a good I'd say feeling like you are unqualified for what is being expected of you but from other people is like a good indicator, even if it's a bad feeling.
Yeah. But yeah, what ends up like happening all the time though is like there's stuff I kind of know how to do, but I like only understand it intuitively. Like I'll see like bad shape design in like some of the flowing like elements in like a composition, like hair is like a thing I see all the time where there's like hair strands that just bother me, but they're not creating tangents or anything like that.
Yeah.
Like it's just they're melting. They look like they're melting a little bit, and I can't fully explain why, but that's like not very helpful advice to tell a person.
Yeah, it'd be like, I don't like your shape language is like not a useful thing to tell anyone ever.
Yeah. And the other thing that keeps happening to me is like I'll do a pretty good job, like when somebody's like, "Help me draw this anime girl better." But when somebody's like, "How do I draw a tiger?" I'm just like, "Fuck, man, I don't know. I've never drawn a tiger before. I'm as clueless as you are."
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the pro teacher move in that situation is you go like, wow, let's pull up a reference of a tiger, and then you're like seeing things for the first time, and you're like, see how its tail is doing this thing, like you know, maybe you're a little bit more experienced with like doing the looking at and reading an image step of things. It'd be like, here's the things I'm noticing about a tiger that I think you could improve, which is true, even though you're maybe not. It's not like an expertise.
Yeah.
Again, I think that you feeling like underqualified to speak to it is ultimately a good thing in some very real ways.
Yeah, I might be able to like figure it out as time goes on too.
Yeah, well, every one of those things that you're helping somebody with is going to like expand, you know, as you need to do research to figure out like the answers to questions you don't know the answers to. Like it's just going to expand your knowledge on a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Like teaching is an acquired skill. It's a trade too, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's either teaching is sometimes the most underpaid and sometimes the most overpaid skill in the world.
Yeah.
If you can be a corporate consultant, overpaid. If you're working for public school, yeah, deeply, deeply underpaid.
Or overpay. I've seen some terrible public school teachers.
No, but none of them ever get paid that well.
Oh, yeah.
And they
Yeah, some
all
of them are, like,
they all
paid
have
right.
to deal with other people's kids.
Yeah.
Even if they never taught a single thing well, the fact that they have to deal with other people's kids all day and that they have to work like weekend jobs at McDonald's to pay the bills tells me that they are probably underpaid.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did a couple of corporate consultancy gigs when I first left Kabam. Like the first things that came in my email were like a couple of different people who like wanted to pay like $10,000 a week to have me like go to their office and try to work with their art team. I was like, yes. The answer is yes.
Money.
Yeah. And it's just like I was unqualified for those jobs, but I also enjoyed them, and I got paid insanely well for them, absurdly well for what it was. But then there's also like, you know, I think about YouTubers who have courses, like the way that like a lot of content creators cash in is by selling courses. And in some cases they like, dude, I was my YouTube feed, I started getting recommended fitness content because I started working out again, and like now I'm like clicking on fitness videos. And it was like a fitness scientist reviews Kim Kardashian's workout video.
Oh, Mike Israel. I know the video you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. That was hilarious. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. Like, I'm just imagining like how much money went into producing this thing, and like how many people probably spent cash on what is possibly the worst exercise video ever, and like beating out anything that was ever released on VHS. And you know, but that's the game for like a lot of people. So that's why I say it's either like the best or the worst paying gig in the world. It's like you're either one of the most famous people on the planet giving the world's worst workout advice, or you are like having to clean up after somebody else's failed parenting and like getting paid the equivalent of $15 an hour to do it.
Dude,
But
sorry, you say.
I think most people that teach though do it because like it can be a really gratifying activity and something that is like sticks with you for your whole life. Like if it's something that you like gravitate towards, like you just never, you don't really, it always ends up working its way back in your lifestyle at one point or another. What were you gonna say?
Oh yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Oh yeah. I was just gonna say, like speaking of like teachers being underpaid, that Mike Israel guy, his company, put out this like free resource that's basically like they combed over like all this data on like experiments done on like bodybuilders and that kind of thing, and made like a cross-referenced like web page that has like links where you like click on the subject and it like takes you to the page with like more detail on that thing and then like back and stuff. Like it's all set up real nice with like exactly how much volume you should be doing for like a given body part depending on your like workout routine and that kind of thing. It's all just free.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, like you could get this for free, or you could pay Kim Kardashian.
Yeah, you could pay Kim Kardashian to do the worst cardio. She was wearing a corset while trying to exercise. I was like, she's like, this is working out the core. I'm like, you. It doesn't look like you can feel your body right now. You're like, they're like, in order to try to look thin, they strapped her into a leather corset that she couldn't move in while she was supposed to be doing cardio, while in $10,000 worth of hair and makeup. I was like, this is awesome. This is the best.
Hey, I have a question, man.
Yeah.
How'd you set up that the pressure thing for the change in the size of your brush?
Oh, sure. So let's say we're on the round brush, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this one, it's like that by default. But like, so inside the brush dynamics panel, shape dynamics is where we're going to go. Size jitter is the control we're looking for. It's set at 0% because the jitter is just like randomness. You know, introducing randomness, and then but you can control the jitter based off of a bunch of different parameters. Like you can have it fade in, so it'll like start big and then go small, right, without pressure at all. And then the pen pressure is just going to give you that like control over the jitter, whether it's like large or small. And that's it. Like it's just changing the size jitter to pen pressure. And if you turn everything else off, I don't know what smoothing is doing.
Okay, so I just went there. I just turned size jitter to pen pressure.
Yeah.
And that should be about it.
Yeah, and just make sure that size jitter is turned down to 0%, and then everything else is turned off, and then that's it. That's the size brush that I use. It's my round brush. And then the other thing I do is I turn my flow down to 10%, which if you want to do it on the hotkeys is like, well, I do one more thing. The brush spacing, if you look at my screen, you can see by the default round brush, if you turn the flow down to 10%, you can see you start getting these like weird concentric circles. That's because the spacing is about 25% the width of the brush. That's under brush tip shape. So I also go to brush tip shape and I turn spacing down to 5%, which is 1/5 of the default. And so you can see like there still are concentric circles, but they're placed very close together. And so at 10% flow, it's just like fading the brush in and out. It's not causing it to be like really transparent. If you were to keep the default spacing, I would say you'd probably want like
What would spacing be scattering on Photoshop?
spacing is under brush tip shape. It's like it's the panel. It's the only panel that you can't turn a checkbox on and off because brush tip shape is like the core dynamics of the brush. so if you had the flow at 50% and the spacing at its default at 25, it would be equivalent, but you'd end up with a lot of like wobbly, like circular edges. So I turn the spacing down every time just to make sure I don't end up seeing so much of the tool marks. And that's it. That's my default brush setup.
We got some new faces in chat, and some folks have questions, it looks like.
Corrine Makes Art. Welcome. So, see. If you say anything weird, it's because you're cleaning your keyboard or your cat's walking across it. What's going on today? Today, we are doing the same thing we do every day, which is that we do studies. Over on the Discord, Dustin, you want to link the Discord? There is a new channel. And I can show it off because I have my Elgato here. The channel's called Today is the Day under the learning section. And you can select one of 4 images for today. Every day I'm posting a new 4 images. 1 anime image, 1 landscape, 1 masterwork, and 1 photo portrait. And you can pick one and spend between 30 minutes and 2 hours working on it. I usually spend about 2 hours, but because I'm trying to spend an hour and I'm like slow. And then, we're posting those on the Dailies channel right below there. So that everybody now has study material they can draw from. And I can switch my screens like a professional Twitch streamer now.
Oh, this feels so much nicer. Oh, crap.
What, the Elgato, to be able to switch between Discord and...
Oh, no, I'm talking about the size of my brush based on my pen pressure.
Oh, yeah. It's, to me, it feels like the most natural brush in the world. But it's like, I don't know, it's just, it's just like the way that's comfortable to me. And then I've spent so many years with it that I don't know how to not use it.
I'm a traditional painter, so like, that went to digital. So doing this feels good. It just feels nice.
Yeah, when I went to try out acrylic, I found it was really easy to adapt to acrylic, with this being my like default brush that I use. And then my textured sponge brush actually behaves really similar, except for it's got some like dual brush dynamics to give it that texture. Oh, and I've got the new snake brush. Double John's asking you, Jazz, are you doing the anime one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. It's got you picked
Hell
one with
yeah.
like really good like interesting like color and stuff. So this is a good thing for me to learn from, I think. I don't know if you did that deliberately. But.
No, I picked one. I liked the mood of it.
Okay.
Let's see.
Like has good vibes.
I'm gonna delete my snake brush, remake it. Slightly different parameters here. So what I was learning about in this class I was taking this weekend was that the trick to making that kind of like effortless, minimalist painting style is that you, rather than placing one brush stroke in a vacuum and making sure that it's placed perfectly, which is kind of what I always imagined, because I had seen Greg Manchester paint in person, and he does that, where he just like assembles a painting like it's a fucking jigsaw puzzle. What's somebody like Sargent or Zorn would do, it was create a base of like simplified shapes underneath, where you start with, kind of exploring like the broader, simpler shapes, and then you lay in carefully placed singular brushstrokes on top of that base to find a particular edge or lay in a singular feature. And in that way, you end up fussing a lot at the beginning when things are general and broad. And then you go and make these incredibly like precise, singular, expressive brushstrokes on top of that. And that's what creates that look. And I was like, oh, I think I might be able to do that. Because I'm never going to be smart enough as a painter to be able to like work like a printer, you know, where I just make a single like exacting brush mark and then that's it. Especially not with digital, where I have so much less control over the dynamics of my brush.
You know, so like I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to do like a good looking painting quickly, and a lot of the like really good looking paintings on the internet that were done fast kind of have that quality you're talking about, where like there are just these like bold, confident brush marks like all over them. They're not like doing too much. And my experience has actually been pretty similar to like I'm not a master at this. Like I haven't quite figured it out, but like when I do a bunch like kind of get the major shapes put in first and like on clipping masks and stuff like that, it makes it easier to just like make decisions about like, okay, there's just going to be a big dark mark here to like indicate the shadow cast by like the folds in the like armpit or whatever on the arm.
Yeah. Like I'm finding myself like adding in a lot of kind of like precise but like broad and messy brushstrokes at the end. And I thought, oh, this is just like me attempting to imitate the affect of a more expressive painter. And if that's true, that the real path is to like lay out like general shapes and then cut in like a few precise marks to like finish it, it's actually closer to what I was doing instinctively than I realized.
Yeah. I don't know, I feel like there's something to be said for just kind of like, I don't know, like doing, I mean, I always say this over and over again, but like just doing stuff like just kind of over and over again and just kind of like trying to figure out what like your brain intuitively wants to do and just like getting good at that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, same. But like I am trying to experiment going beyond that a little bit, you know? I want to learn new things. Like I am on a journey right now to try to like be a better artist. Something I'd say I've never done, because I've always just made paintings the way I wanted to of the things that I wanted to without any real conscious study. Like I've always aspired to be better all the time. I've never done things expressly for the purpose of being better without it also being a part of like a project.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know what I mean. Like I've done a ton of that, but like it's left me with blind spots. And so I'm on this quest now to figure out what are those things that other people have learned that I didn't learn because I went to a shit art school and I plugged my ears whenever anyone tried to explain anything to me, and like, you know, all the bad habits I've had over the years that have accumulated, like how much of them are undoable and how much can I like stack on top of my good habits, because I've got plenty of those. I have a lot of instincts that I built up over the years. And I'm curious about like, you know, what do other people do, and like what other methods of working are there? Because, you know, there's a time when you're learning it where it's like feels really counterintuitive and it's a struggle. But, you know, I was realizing the other day, I was talking about a habit I had where I make lists in my head of all the things I want to fix in order to call a painting done, and realizing that like I only have that habit because I like did it on purpose for like many years until it became like a instinct. And now I'm wondering, you know, what other things could I intentionally build into my workflow in order to develop habits that are going to build on top of my existing repertoire.
Okay.
Because like, you know, I'm really limited in my knowledge of brushes and classical painting techniques, and like I have very little experience doing studies and things like that. It's like
Yeah.
I've always been someone who expressed the philosophy of just, do what gives you pleasure artistically, and like then you won't stop doing it, and then you won't help but be able to get better. But there is more beyond that, I think. And it's the first time. I mean, I'm catching myself saying this for like the first time ever in like 20 years of painting.
All right.
Who knows? I think your the viewpoint you were just saying is like true, but maybe not. Like all things, not the whole truth.
Yeah, so like when I was like starting out, right, I was like watching a lot of interviews with artists to try to figure out like what did they do to like get as good as they are, Like and I watched like a whole bunch of different ones that were from different artists because I wanted to see like what do the good ones all have in common, and what are the things that like they say but like nobody else does it that way. And like there's some stuff that like they all have in common, but like man, there's a lot of stuff that like everybody just kind of does differently.
Yeah.
And like everything seems to kind of work. And I think it also seems like people go through phases where like they think it's all about this one thing for like a while, and then they're like, no man, it's all about this other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like honestly, like maybe there's more to it than like I've been able to perceive. But like seems like the only things like people really have in common is like a desire to improve, like a whole lot of like time spent doing it, a mixture of drawing from observation and trying to create their own stuff. That's like pretty much it. um, Everybody uses different brushes, everybody uses different software, everybody has different orders in which they do things. Everybody like stylizes stuff differently. Everybody like chooses to omit like I don't know, like different like bits of like I don't know, like realism from their stuff, I guess, for lack of a better term. Like it's hard to figure out. But then I don't know, the stuff that's like not shared between them, I'm not sure it's like not important just because it's like not shared between them. It's just that like I don't know, there's like an element of subjectivity and just like arbitrariness in art, right? Like there's some like everybody's making these sort of arbitrary choices that like by necessity lead them away from making like other choices, and they're not wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with them. They're just like different from one another.
It's so hard to like every time saying that out loud to me has always felt like a cop out. Like, everybody does their own thing. They're not better or worse. They're just different. And it sounds like a cope every single time, I feel like, but it's like I think it's just one of the most difficult truths for people to accept. It's just like cuz I know like I want an easier answer. And everyone around me who's ever asked me any questions about art, I know is like hunting for an easier answer. Like answer the question, like, what do you do? So they're like, okay. So I've been doing this thing, and I'm like, now what? Like, what do I do? And it's like, man, just follow your heart. And then you just look at them and you're just like, well, okay. You nod along, and under your breath you're like, okay, I gotta go find somebody else. This guy's fucking full of shit. Follow your heart. Worthless advice. This brush is so crunchy. I keep trying to carve edges with it. I can't do fucking shit with this brush. It's driving me crazy. What do we got in here? What else we got? Snake brush. Oh my god, so textury. I have no idea what's in here.
Like I don't know, like one of the things I've been like telling people, and then I'm like thinking more about it, and it's like, fuck, am I wrong? Am I just like telling people a thing that's like not true? Is like you need to get good at like perspective. It's like really important for drawing. But like Kekai, I remember watching an interview with Kekai Kotaki where he says like I don't really know how to do perspective, so I just kind of like put in a bunch of atmospheric perspective to like suggest that there's perspective, even though there isn't really. And it's like, fuck.
You're like, if KKI doesn't do it, then like, well, why am I over here busting my own balls about the fact that my perspective is no good?
Yeah, it's just like.
Yeah, I also
Maybe you
have
don't need
I have
perspective.
almost no knowledge of perspective. I had a manager once who was only good at perspective. Like they were kind of bad at like everything I was good at, but they were good at perspective, and so they would always like use that as like a cudgel to be like, nah, actually you're not as good as you think you are. Your perspective on this treasure chest is wrong. And I'm like, dude, who cares?
Oh man.
I feel like I've just trying to switch brushes. I feel like I've just taken a step back like 10 years in my painting ability. I hate this so much. I feel so incompetent.
Yeah, dude, I always run into the same thing. Like, there's just this like handful of brushes in Krita that like aren't good. In fact, Beast was telling me they have a garbage the other day.
Is that the developer?
No. Beast
Oh,
is
Beast.
a German guy who hangs out in Discord.
Yeah.
His picture is a tiger. Yeah.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about now. I was like,
Yeah, and he was like, the default brushes in Krita are garbage. And it's like, fuck, he's right. They are kind of garbage, aren't they? But I'm just used to them, you know? And every time I, like, try a good brush, I'm just like, I don't like it. It's making me worse.
yeah, that's
I'm
the
just gonna
thing.
go back to the other one.
I was like, okay, I keep putting this off. I'm gonna be like a good sport about everything. Like today's the day where I go and figure this brush thing out. I have no idea. Like this is one of those things that I want to figure out how to teach. Is like, I need to figure out. Like I need somebody to like not only just give me their brushes. I need them to show me what they use those brushes for, because people's brushes don't make any fucking sense to me. I only use like 5 brushes ever. And I've been using the same main brush for 20 years. Like, and then I try to do the stuff that I normally do, but then the brush is like all textury and stuff. So it just does the same thing that I normally do, but worse. And it makes me wonder like what is different about the way I'm thinking about this from everybody else, because it feels 100% like it's counterproductive.
So I remember hearing from Ashes that she only uses like 2 brushes, right, for like the main image, and then the rest of the stuff is just texturing. It just makes texturing 100 times easier. You just put it wherever you want, like you think it might look interesting.
That's an approach, yeah. Because like, you know, my main brush is like untextured and it's easy as shit to control. And I want to make like expressive looking paintings, but trying to do an expressive painting where I feel like I'm out of control and I can't like control my edges, I can't control my blending. It feels entirely counterproductive. So I'm gonna try that a little bit. I'm gonna give that another swing. 'Cause now that I've spent an hour or whatever fighting this fucking thing and like having the slowest progress I've ever had on a study in 45 days of doing them, I am throwing in the towel. I'm so sick of this shit. So done. Fuck all these very good brushes from artists who are better than me. It's like, you know, I'm trying brush packs from people who I think of as being way better art than me. And so I'm like, there's got to be something hidden in these things that like helps them produce this incredible artwork. But yeah, maybe everyone's a little different, right?
I think it's kind of like you said too. I mean, not to just jump in, but you know, everyone has a different process and a different approach. Like, you see a brush. I mean, I've had brushes that I've used that I was like, oh, how could anybody use this brush? And then you see the person using it. Oh, if you go really big with it, it gives you all this texture. If you go really small with it, it does this. But there's such like a specific approach that.
There was one guy who came around who was like, he had just started drawing like a couple months earlier, and he was showing that he had like like 1,000 brush packs. He's like, yeah, I've spent many hundreds of dollars on brush packs, and like, and I was like, dude, why? you don't even
Being a good
paint.
artist, it's you're just judging on your brush set.
It's like they're like Pokemon cards, bro. You gotta get them all.
Yeah. So for some people, it's like they're always on the hunt for like the best thing, the thing that's gonna like level them up. And I was thinking, damn, if I would be able to make a lot of money if I could sell brush packs, because like people are like asking me, oh, how do I paint like you? And so if I could sell them brush packs for $10, god damn, that'd be some real easy money. And so I started trying to assemble a brush pack that was like remake because I didn't remember where they came from. I'm not sure if they're Photoshop defaults or if like this textured one is a Photoshop default or stolen from Jamie Jones. So I went to go like try to remake it manually. And I was like, maybe I'll like go and make a bunch of brushes that like I'll learn how to use as I'm making them or something. Cause like there's I can't sell brushes if I don't use any. So I'm like trying to see if I can learn how to like make and use make brushes specifically just so I can sell them as though that I was using them the whole time or whatever. It doesn't seem. I had to give up on it. Like I had the hardest time just being that like crass. Like I can't follow through with it. I just get bored and I go work on something else I care about.
Pete, have you used Krita at all?
A little bit.
Have you tried the insane brush that like Dave Raposa swears is like the greatest thing ever, but is the weirdest brush I've ever seen?
The insane brush. Let's give this a try so I can take a mental break from
Oh
doing
my God,
bad
bro.
at studying. What's the insane brush? Is it a default?
Yeah, it's a default brush in Krita.
Is it the
And,
magnet
like,
brush? I saw Tunser using that once, and it was blowing my mind.
Yeah, it's called the Chrome. It's under the like sketching tab. Oh no, it's the ink tab.
Ink tab.
Yeah.
I hate how they all have these like skeuomorphic thumbnails. I hate them.
Yeah.
Is it this one?
Called the Chrome brush. There's two of them. There's the Sketching Chrome 1 thin and the Sketching Chrome 2 thick.
Yep,
I think.
that's it.
Sketching Chrome large, Sketching Chrome thin. Yeah, I think this is it.
Yep, and like Dave's been using these, and you can get a really cool look with them, but there are so many like.
Oh, dude, this
ways
looks
in
like
which they're
the way
weird.
that it intersects over itself kind of reminds me of AI texture. But
Yeah.
this is
Yeah,
really cool though. This is sick. I would maybe give this a try because this is doing something besides just being texture. Like there's a real dynamic to it.
Yeah, and like I kind of want like I've experimented with it a little bit because it looks like it would get an interesting look for anime.
No.
Because you can do.
Dude, this
like-
is right up. This is actually right up my alley because it's like, it's a little bit surrealistic, and it's like, it's a little bit chaotic, which means that you can read a lot into it.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
But, like-
this is great. I immediately like get how to use this. This is fantastic.
I keep yes, I'm
I think,
watching
yeah,
it. It is much.
awesome with this one too is if you set the eraser to be sort of you're also drawing with the same brush but with transparency, it lets you carve out shapes in a really interesting manner.
The eraser is the eraser a separate tool in Krita or not, or is just turn on the eraser parameter?
It is, but if yeah.
Yeah,
And
you
so
just
can
hit
make it,
E
like,
and it,
hotkey
like,
is
inverts
usually
the-
how I do it. But yeah, it's
This is so interesting. Like, it already looks like a piece, like the way you're going at it.
Yeah. Yeah, you could do cool. Like Dave's been doing these like anime drawings with it, and they look kind of like Akihiko Yoshida. Because when you like turn the direction of the brush, it creates these like dark tips to like the like points on things that you draw, and you can like automatically create little like occlusion shadows with it. And then if you use the big one, you can get these little value areas built up quickly. It's neat, but it's very. I don't know how you're so good with it so fast. Jesus.
I don't know. I mean, it's like I tend to do these when I'm sketching digitally. I tend to do these sort of large dynamic marks that kind of wrap around each other. Like this is how I sketch with a pencil. Also, is that I will when I start off, like I'm just gonna. But what? There it goes. When I start off with like really loose like construction lines to try to like find my way through something. But then when the overlaps are automatically creating like darker areas, that's like what I'm already doing. Is like I'm looking for areas where the line is overlapping itself and then building that up over the course of it. So it's kind of doing a sort of procedural fast forward through the process of like finding the areas that are overlapping naturally from the dynamic line.
Okay. Yeah, I think I kind of get what you mean. Like it automatically does like little occlusion shadows for you and things. Neat. You get like happy accidents. I can't like fully control it. I mean, I guess you're not supposed to like fully control it. Maybe that's.
But that's the thing. Is like my sketching process is not a matter of fully controlling it. It's a matter of like playing around with playing around and then finding weird little happy accidents and then building on them.
Okay. Yeah.
So like I start off very loose and then I add intention as I like find weird little things that I like in there. But yeah, I could see myself. I would want to play with the. Are there parameters on this thing at all? Like, there's nothing at the top panel.
Oh.
Is there a let's see, brush smoothing basic, snap assistance? Is there any parameters to this brush's behavior other than its size?
Try right-clicking the brush to see what it does.
What was this? Is right click?
It's not like directly on the brush.
Oh, right click on the brush. Assign to tag, remove from other tag. What? I hate Krita. I hate that Krita's trying to be so clever about fucking everything all the time.
So Krita, it's okay, Krita. I love you because you're free.
I love that it's free, and I want, and like if anybody were to say, "Hey, I'm gonna try giving digital art a try," like
some folks in chat have some pro tips for you.
What we got?
Art.
You have to set the brush to 1,000 pixel size. Yeah, the bigger it gets, the more it's doing what it does well, it feels like. So using an oversized brush is already like my natural state. So this feels oddly in line with me. I'm into it.
Okay, cool. A lot of Dave's students have been like
thank you,
things with it too.
Constius the Fourth. Excellent tip. Top tab, click near normal, the icon. Oh, this thing? Oh, okay. So we have spikes 2. All right, randomness 0, density 100. I'm gonna come back to this. I'm trying to finish the study. This rabbit hole immediately is going too deep and too dark. But I'm glad. Okay. So there is this is the brush editor. I really wish that Krita had a parameters bar at the top the same way that Photoshop does, where it gives you like different parameters based off of whatever tool you're on. Like that would make sense to me. The brush is hard to master. But like this feels like the sort of thing where you don't necessarily need to master it. It's just that it like, I don't know why it's called Chrome, but it doesn't matter. The lack of, like, the fact that it doesn't need mastery to do interesting things is what's cool to me about it.
I wonder if you have to be decent at painting to be good with this thing. Because Dave's a pretty good painter, right?
He's
Like,
pretty good, yeah.
He's more than pretty good. Like, because like I suck with this stupid thing.
I'm telling you, like, the reason why I think this works for me is because it naturally it flows naturally with the way that I already sketch. Like, the kinds of movements I would normally make to sketch something out are resulting in interesting dynamic marks that look like what I would do if I had done like 10 times as many marks piled on top of each other. But like slightly AI-ified, where it's like there's a loss of control, but a gain in terms of like dynamism and like so it's like the machine, it's taking over to a degree, but it's like what it's contributing to the process is like interesting, not something I would necessarily do on my own. Because I always like, these kind of more chaotic, organic shapes mixed in, and I will like go through and pick those out and turn them into something. That's a big part of what I do.
Automatically depositing a bunch of large tortoises in your yard.
What? Large tortoises?
Your tortoise analogy. It's your analogy I'm referencing here. Big brush strokes that like.
The thin chrome is meant for sketching, and the large chrome is meant for rendering painting. The thin chrome, it looks like it's in color. It's chrome thin, chrome large. But like the chrome thin is like colored, or it's got like this is why I hate the preview things, because it infers a kind of like intent to how the tool should be used correctly, but like using the tools incorrectly is like what digital art's all about, because everyone's hand is like unique and they need like slightly different processes. Yeah, I mean, like, instantly I'm happy with the results here. Oh, I really wish that brush and eraser were separate tools, like in Photoshop. This is the thing that drives me crazy, because like CSP and like what do you call it, Psy, they just presume that like the basic stuff is just going to work like the way that Photoshop does, and then Krita is like, no, we're special, unique, a super unique flower.
Why doesn't anybody I've heard of use GIMP?
It's like everything that's bad about Krita turned up to 1,000 with nothing redeeming about it. As far that's my impression of GIMP. I might be wrong. GIMP heads, don't come at me, okay?
But it does have a funny name. That's an upside.
It does have a funny name. That's an upside. It's been free for a long time. I've recommended it to people in the past for its like lack of costing money. I feel like I could start a lot of paintings with this thing. Why is it when it's white doing weird gray stuff? God, okay, I'm out of here. Bye. Fuck GIMP. Yeah. All my homies hate GIMP. Yeah, fuck GIMP. And in case you're a Twitch mod, we are talking about a piece of software called GIMP. Just realize that it's not a slur, it's the name of the software. It's a Linux-based image software that's proper name is GIMP, and it's a piece of fucking garbage. And I hate it because it's confusing and annoying to use, and not because of anything that has to do with the protected status of a person. All right?
I
All right?
can't use
Play
Ash's brushes. I'm getting so frustrated.
Yeah, I don't think Ash's brain works the way that ours does. I think that she's like a Kim Jong-gi style, like an X-Man, you know?
You should, for something like that, because I'm trying, I'm like, so I'm just like hitting myself in the head.
Yeah, I think she's got different shaped neurons than the rest of us or something, and like I can't. Maybe I didn't go to the right art school. I don't know. I'm going back. I'm receding back. Like I would love if Photoshop had cool, like interesting brush things that were different, like the chrome brush from Krita. But as far as texture goes, I'm going to play with them to see if they can add anything interesting at the end of the process. Yeah, GIMP is a drawing app. I mean, you don't need to draw with it. You can paint with it too. It's an open source image manipulation program. That's true. It's a good description. We're starting the week off slow, you guys. So the other thing I wanted to try today, now that I've given a full-on swing at doing the more dynamic brushes, is like imagining that the figure is sort of like sandblasted and simplified down to like larger, simpler shapes, and starting with that and then trying to subdivide down and add detail. Because like I was doing things for a long time in a way where I was just looking at the value pattern rather than trying to expressly build up like the shapes. And I've felt like that might be leading to some of the undesirable outcomes that I've been having. So sort of a mix between analyzing it from a value perspective and a structural perspective is like what I've always done. But, you know, I'm thinking of like throwing the mix off a little bit here to lean towards doing a little bit more structural painting prior to getting down into the details. Like the necklace, for instance, like I can go and paint in a rough, the thing I'm catching myself doing all the time that I think is a bad habit, I think, is like I'll just do a rough something or other to like placehold where the necklace is. But then I need to go through and precisely carve out like every inch of it in different spots to like, minor changes in thickness as it goes along, where the corners are, how dark it is above and below the necklace on the neck, you know, little cast shadows and like ambient occlusion. And it ends up being like a lot of process to kind of like get it to a point where it's actually correct and detailed. But what I might have an easier time with is like just paint the neck without the necklace on it and then go in and make these kind of smaller features built on a more clearly defined structure. That way I just have less fiddling at the end to try to like correct for minor like discrepancies. And I have to consider like the shapes of the thing that I'm painting more thoroughly. So I watched like 6 hours of this 8-hour tutorial. That was my big thing that I got out of it. I never watch tutorials ever. So we're going to watch some tutorials together later. I'm going to let you guys know what I think about them.
You're gonna be like, whoa, what? I never knew this before. Just like way overreact to everything.
I'm just gonna hire, since I don't show my face on the cam at all, I'm gonna like hire a guy to like do Mr. Beast style face reacts every single time I see anything. I remember early, I think my distaste like for tutorials came in really early, because I remember like back in the day, old school, ancient internet, back before people called it painting, digital painting, they called it CGing an image. You didn't paint it, you didn't color it, you CG'd it, right? And so when you were I was looking at tutorials on how to CG an image, and you know, you look for the one that's got the best looking thumbnail on it, and then you take everything that's in there and treat it as gospel, right? That's how you do tutorials. At least that's how I thought. So I got this tutorial that was explaining the way to create like all the rendering image was to lasso tool an area and then use the gradient. And then add gradients to it.
That's a way. Sure.
Theoretically possible. And so he would be like, okay, well, you take this area and then you I don't even know what the hotkey is, and then you add some gradients to it, right? And I was like, that is theoretically a way to work. But like, I know enough now to actually kind of be able to pull it off. But at the time, it didn't make any sense to me because, like, obviously, like, the gradients that when you look under the gradients tab, like it's like the default one is foreground background, right?
Yeah.
And it's at 100% opacity. So you get this thing, and then you go, okay, that didn't work. That's like 100% wrong, right? And it's like, well, okay, like everything you do, you're like, this is all wrong. Obviously, like, no matter where I pull this direction, like, this always looks fucking awful. Like, what am I missing? The thing I was missing about it was that, number one, you'd have to juice the opacity. And number two, you'd need to use the, like, gradient that is, like, the color into transparency. So you'd want to turn the opacity way down, and then you would, like, and then if it descends into transparency, you can actually make pretty decent painterly gradients by doing selections and then using gradients into them. It's like probably an interesting way of like blocking an image. And like but like if that's the only thing is like you're supposed to use the lasso tool and then a gradient, like the idea of like learning how to paint like a Renaissance painter from that tutorial is like pretty much impossible. But now that I'm here to like clown on this technique, I'm almost instantly liking it and wishing that I was using it more. Cause like it kind of is sort of interesting. So my point that it's like a dumb idea that should be clowned on is like instantly been disproven by like creating like kind of good results with it. Cause if you go in with a brush tool afterwards and clean it up a little bit, you get some like extra painterliness, and you can bust up those like hard lasso edges. And get something that looks probably pretty decent pretty fast. I'm sure someone out there has just learned the technique that's going to like redefine the way that they work as an artist for the next 10 years. So, yeah.
I have. Oh, sorry. What you think?
No, I was just repeating myself because it was dead air. What's up?
Okay. I've several times I have been like, okay, I need to get better at drawing anime. So I sit down and crack my knuckles and open up a random Japanese tutorial that I don't understand anything in, and I nod like I understand, but like I don't actually understand. I'm like the meme.
Yeah.
And every time the guy has like a completely different painting process. I'm having to like pause the video and be like, what's he clicking on in order to like, okay, now what's the Krita equivalent of this? I don't know.
We should look at those together. I was saying I'm going to do tutorial reacts. See if you can find one so we can look at it together and we can both just scream at the screen trying to figure out what the fuck this person's doing. This sounds like
all right.
This instantly sounds like content to me. Say no more.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I'll dig some up. But they always have like wildly different painting processes, and there's guys who are like phenomenal painters, and they're like, oh, don't mind me, I'm just doing a little practice painting today. I think that's what they're saying. It just sounds like weird Japanese words I don't know the meaning of.
That's all moon speak to you.
Yeah.
That's probably not kosher anymore. Very Saj is asking like, you recommend what books / tutorials do you recommend to paint values like that for an absolute noob? Man, I don't know. When it comes to painting values, like I feel like a lot of it came down to like me experimenting a lot like you have to build up like a sense of it that's not academic but like intuitive. Like learning
That
values
means
to
there's-
me is like a matter of like you build up like a sense. It's like building up like a sense of smell. Like you learn to just kind of sniff out like, hey, that's a little darker than that. That's a little lighter than that. And like getting a sense for like where your brain tricks you about what values are which ones. That's all comes down to like sniffing it out. This technique I'm trying today is actually producing a lot of the effect I was hoping for, where like there's like much tighter and looser areas and like, I don't know, maybe every day that I have like a really bad start and I'm deeply frustrated, always has this moment of clarity that comes a little further along that makes me feel happy I was getting out of my bubble. But yeah, the James Gurney books, drawing and painting books, are quite excellent. That's one that's recommended all the time. The most classic drawing book ever, I think, is probably How to Draw the Marvel Way, which is like looks hilariously dated, but continues to be like a very strong like starter's guide for how to draw from your imagination, because it goes over the like most basic of basics in a way that is very, very easy to follow.
I had an experience recently with values. I was like just grinding really hard on like drawing for like years, and like my drawing skills got way ahead of my painting skills, and I've been sort of aware of this for like over a year at this point. And so I've been trying to like finish more paintings or whatever, but they've been like consistently turning out like not the way I want for like a long time, and I feel like I haven't been improving as fast as I should be. And every time everybody yells at me about value studies. They're like, you gotta do value studies. It's like, I know, but I did value studies back when I was just starting out. It didn't work. I tried it, you guys. I tried it. And eventually I was just like, oh, fuck it. Why don't I do the value studies? And just because I had like built up a ton of mileage, like painting, not even like thinking about values really, but just doing tons and tons of paintings badly.
Yeah.
I did 2 value studies and was instantly like, oh, there's way too much white in everything, and my like shadows need to be like 20% darker, and like there needs to be more ambient occlusion, and like I can go really, really dark.
Like you've been
in, like,
building up all this
things.
value learning, and then like one tutorial hits and it's like activated. And, like it hits your like chi spot, and then your like your brain explodes.
Yeah, my kundalini was like aligned sufficiently to like absorb.
There's a question in the chat I think is interesting. What if your imagination is poor, in parentheses, due to depression? I'm somebody who has gone through a lot of like cycles of mania and depression, like not to a clinical level, but like enough. Like I've talked to professionals about this. Like it happens enough that it's like it impacts my life and it impacts my work. So I feel like I've had a lot of dealing with depression. I have never noticed an association between depression and lack of imagination. The sense of mind that gets worse, and I'm wagging my pen here to make a point in front of the camera, is my sense of smell. I know when I like am emerging from a depressive episode because I start noticing the smells of rooms that I'm in. Like, I remember there was a time like a couple of months ago where I was going through a depressive episode, and then I was walking through the grocery store and I realized I could smell not only like the food, but like dust and packet cardboard and like just all the smells of the room suddenly came through really vividly. And I was like, oh, my depression's lifting. I can smell everything again. Like I looked it up because I'm like, I wonder if anybody else has ever had this observation. And there is some people that they've done tests on it. They've done experiments to see whether or not people's sense of smell genuinely gets better or worse when they're depressed. I don't know if there's an actual scientific correlation or if it's entirely in the brain, but I feel like there's like something that becomes like unblocked or whatever, not just in the mind, but like in my body when I like exit a depressive episode. And so I mean, it's entirely possible that maybe your brain works differently and that your like mind's eye gets stronger or weaker based off of how depressed you are. I've never experienced that. So, yeah, I just wanted to let you know maybe you're actually crazy, and I want to gaslight you a little bit. But yeah, I know lots of artists that don't actually have a mind's eye at all. There's some really accomplished ones that have zero mind's eye. So I think there's an overemphasis on this idea of imagination as like a sort of inner eye and like seeing like great ideas for paintings in your head. I don't think that's the thing. Like, I think developing a process that doesn't rely on it is going to be far more important than like trying to come up with some sort of holistic method for like dealing with whether or not you feel like depression is standing in the way. I tend to be really unproductive on a lot of things, but I'm usually still able to like paint just fine when I'm depressed. I have worse executive function, so it's like harder to like make plans to sit down and do it. But also like many years of depression in like high school and college, the art was a coping mechanism. So that's when I start to get really depressed, oftentimes I like break away from what I'm supposed to be doing and I make good personal work. So I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with like periods of like really low mood, because some of my best work has come out of those moments as a result of me escaping like my obligations and spending time really investing in myself. I don't think that the depression makes me better at painting, but it does pull me away from distractions and back towards things that like are important to me personally. And so that leads me to like create personal work, which tends to be some of my best work.
Okay, neat. So the secret to having a good portfolio that will get you lots of work is to experience crushing sadness on a regular basis.
Comic Stance is asking, imagination grows from meditation of process. Mediation of process? I don't know.
I can't paint this anymore, man.
I thought it said it was meditation, and I was like, meditation? I never heard any kind of association with meditation and imagination. Even like all the Buddhist stuff I've read, they're always like, yeah. Art's not actually meditative, and there's no connection between art and meditation. I'm like, that seems off to me. But also, like, I don't think that meditating has ever made me a better artist. Mediation of process. I'm not sure. So like a dialogue. I don't know. The best work for me just comes out of times when I am making art for the sake of making it. When I don't put anything else on it, when there's no other reason to make it other than for its own existence, I make better work. And when I have like expectations stacked in, I make worse work. And I think that's true for some people, but I wouldn't say it's universally true. Jazz, when you make better and worse work, what do you need in order to like produce your best possible paintings?
I need more time generally. Like, there's a loose correlation between like the amount of time I spent on. Is there even? I'm doubting myself immediately. Some of my best work I actually like pounded out really fast and effortlessly. Remember that witch I like drew in like a couple hours, like a few weeks ago, with the like wand and like the crazy like flowing cloak and stuff?
I don't know.
Didn't take
Was
a
I
long
around?
time. I think you like liked it or something when I posted it in like the Discord.
Oh, I might have only been looking at it for a second. Dustin has figured out how we're gonna set up sketchbook threads, and is gonna set those up, and like we're gonna test them on power users in the Discord. So we're gonna give you a sketchbook thread to be able to post stuff, so that instead of having a bunch of random disconnected posts, you'll have like a thread to be able to put all of your sketches in, so people can take a look through like your larger body of work here on Discord.
Okay, yeah, awesome.
That's going to be good. I think you're going to benefit from it more than the average user.
Just because I like.
You've got a
I'm
lot.
kind of making stuff most days, yeah.
And like, rather than it being about any one individual piece, it's more about the fact that you're making a lot of these and that there's some variety. And
Yeah.
I
also really love like recording what I'm doing chronologically. It's just like fun to look back on, and it kind of like forms a bit of a like story.
Yeah. So that'll be going up in the next couple of days, I think.
Okay, sweet. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I was looking at
yeah.
some other Discords, like how they structured it, and realized that there's actually pretty good tools for it. I'm not always aware of like what we have available to us.
Like, what makes me make good work? I feel like it's just kind of random sometimes. But and there's also a really boring answer, which is like, if I do stuff I'm comfortable with and that I like and that like I've done a million times, it generally turns out better. And if I do stuff that's like not interesting to me or that I've never done before, it like usually turns out worse. Like, it's very rare that like you, a character artist who only draws Sonic the Hedgehog OCs, sits down to draw like an Evangelion mech and is just like, and just nails it on the first shot, you know? But I don't know, I guess that question probably is more like, okay, let's assume you're doing like stuff that's like you or whatever. When do you do like the good stuff that's like you? Fuck, man, I don't know. If I knew, I'd have a better body of work.
Yeah, right. It's like some days the muse finds you, and you're just like, God damn! Like if I can do this, I'm going to be rich. And then you sit down to do it again. You're like, I don't know how I did that. And there's been times where I'm like literally have a piece that's 10 years ahead of everything else, and I go, oh my God.
Yep.
And I like have to go through and meticulously try to pick it back apart and study it and figure out what was I doing here that was so smart.
And it like doesn't work.
It's
like, can't do it again.
But it's like it always emerges out of like a sense of like, hey, I'm just doing this because it seems like the right choice in the moment. It's not like the best pieces that are way ahead of everything else are early on in my learning. I think sometimes it was because I put just like a ton of time in. So that was like my big hack for a bit. But like once I got more efficient at painting, there was like this sort of thoughtlessness that where I was just like, things would just appear and be obvious. And then I would have like, there'd be this insight, it would come to me, I would do it. And whatever I did would turn out 1,000 times better than I could have anticipated. I wasn't entirely sure I was making the choices. It was just like, I have this relationship with this quiet voice, and I do my best to listen to it. And sometimes the quiet voice is like way smarter than me. And so I just try to do my best to like not be too noisy in my own head, because the quiet voice has all the good ideas and I'm just like a fraud, And so I'm just like patiently waiting for the quiet voice to like speak and doing my best not to speak over it. And then when it does the thing, the amazing thing, then I do my best to play along and not only not ruin it, but also try to like, sell it to other people, tell a story about it.
Yeah.
But, it's not a fully conscious choice. It's like a part of the unconscious that's like taking a moment and piping up.
Yeah. I don't know. Like like that witch I brought up a second ago. Like I was doing my like daily character designs, and I just did one that's like way better than all the other ones, and like I haven't been able to do it again since.
Yep.
It's driving me crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, what do you do? Like, I mean,
keep doing them.
Keep doing them, I guess.
Later, the bulk will catch up. Yeah. It happened too when I was just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go crazy with it. I'm just gonna make like random shapes. I was like really frustrated, like none of them were turning out good, so I just took a big risk and like drew a bunch of crazy swooping lines and stuff, and I was like, whoa, this is working. and I just like didn't hit a snag or whatever. But like, I've gone back to do that since. It's just like, well, I'm making the swoopy lines, but like nothing looks like anything cool. I don't know.
Maybe all artists are just frauds and listen to little voices in their head. Think about that.
Uh,
Getting lucky through accidental success. Maybe that's why people train their artistic intuition. Yeah, I mean there's that artistic intuition hits like a truck when it hits. Like
yeah.
it sometimes just feels like sometimes it just feels like luck. Where you're just like, man, I managed to accidentally make a bunch of lines that made a thing that like totally rules. But also you know that from watching other people that like if they were to be presented with the same random group of lines, they wouldn't see anything in it. So it's like a combination of like making some good choices on accident and then also having the clarity to like understand that there's something of value there. And so it almost doesn't feel like you wonder, is there a circumstance that would guarantee lead to a bad outcome? Or is it always just a matter of whether or not we have the clarity to see things for like some greater potential beyond what they are naturally?
Pete, I actually have a question for you about concept art. Something you said reminded me of it. So I've done a little bit of concept art for just like random clients who aren't paying me very much.
I've seen
it.
You're outperforming your pay by quite a bit.
Thanks. I think. But the thing that keeps happening to me is like I feel the need to like put out a huge amount of output like whenever someone hires me to do concept art, right? So I'll like do a bunch of thumbnails and I feel the need to have a large volume of thumbnails because I don't want to just hand them one drawing and it's really rough but it's a good idea, right? So I always hand them like a sheet and like some of them are good and some of them are bad, like, and every time without fail they pick the worst one and they're like, oh my god, that one, fucking money, man. Like, what should I do in like that circumstance? What I've been doing.
I'm the
is,
wrong
like,
person to ask about that.
Okay, all right. Yeah,
Zero insight and like total lack of client work. My solution for the most client work I've done was for Magic, and at first I would give them multiple thumbnails, and they never picked one that I thought was like the bad one. But at a certain point, I was just like, I need to stop like pretending like I want to do all of these, and I'm just going to give them the one that I want, and they were always fine with that.
Yeah, that's what I did too. I just started like being like, okay, I'm just going to let them think that I'm lazy and like not doing that much drawing, and like it's resulted in like more painless jobs. And nobody's ever complained. Nobody's been like, really, only one drawing? What the hell am I hiring you for?
Yeah, make them think that you spent the whole 10 hours on one drawing.
Yeah, I just draw really slow, man.
Yeah. Because, I mean, people love paying for stuff hourly, so just make it appear like you're slower than you are. Yeah. There's no benefit in appearing like you can work fast unless you want to, like, make a good case for you being paid less.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah, maybe I figured out the solution. Just don't show them the bad stuff. Don't let them shoot themselves in the foot.
But here's the thing: is like, I don't put myself in a situation where I have to like deal with other people's opinions about my work that often. Recently I've been working with a YouTube channel. Like they did a Tail Foundry. They did a video based off of about Angelarium, right? And
I saw that video. Yeah.
They've in like both videos I've done the art for the thumbnails. The first video did like big numbers. So it was like 900,000 views, right? Huge. Second video comes out. This is the one where all the money's riding on it because I sponsored the video, so there's actual traffic coming back from the video back to my page. And it's done like 90,000. So it's like 1/10 the performance. In both cases, they the channel owner art directed the thumbnails, and like in both cases, he's given me artistic direction on it, and like my feeling on it has been like he knows how YouTube thumbnails work, and I don't know shit, and so he's gonna tell me to do stuff that sounds wrong to me, and I'm just gonna do it in good faith. I'm gonna do my absolute best to just follow the direction as given. Make sure that I am doing things the way that he believes is correct, and just don't insert myself and my preferences into the process, because I'm an amateur and I don't have good ideas like when it comes to this specific medium. And like, well, the thing I've been doing like the last week in the mornings before I get started is I've been revising the thumbnail on the one that like did bad numbers, because like, we were both looking at it and going like, this is underperforming, and it might be the thumbnail. It might be that I did a good painting that was a bad thumbnail. And it's like, now we're just going back to it and taking a look at it from the perspective of what does this need from a product perspective? Not like, hey, is this a good painting? Is it a bad painting? Like, we both think it's a pretty good painting, but we have evidence. We have numbers to confirm that perhaps it's a bad thumbnail, even if it's a good painting. And so I've been revising it based off of, his expertise in creating thumbnails and like, feedback from other YouTubers who understand this medium very, very well. And, and just even like he gave me feedback, said, we can't have a light figure on a dark background. We got to do a dark figure on a light background. So I redid the entire values of the painting along with other stuff. And then the next day he's like, actually, no, fuck me. It was the other way around. You got it right the first time. And so I redid the entire painting back the other way again. So I ended up doing a full reversal on the value structure twice. And honestly, it wasn't painful at all, just because like at no point was my ego involved in it. Because this is not a painting that requires me to have like a creative vision for it. I need to understand what is effective about it as a piece of packaging. And like, it's been a totally different experience than getting art direction for when I was working on stuff in games. Because in games, I'm like trying to achieve some specific creative outcome, and I've got somebody breathing down my neck telling me, actually, you're doing it wrong. And I'm like, no, fuck you, I'm doing it right, you're wrong. And so I had really bad experiences, getting feedback in a professional environment in the past. But like, just like, if you can trust that the person who's giving you feedback like understands the needs of the painting and like they have the best intentions in mind, I found it's really easy to like have even really rough feedback be totally simple to handle. And so like the solution is not necessarily like, protect the client from themselves. Like, I think the solution is to like, this is a guess because I have very little experience doing professional work like this. I think the solution might just be to like practice like creating without ego. As if like what you need to be is just like a outlet for some other person who's like not experienced with painting or drawing, then like just you can just be that and nothing else. And it's possible to just be like a medium for someone else, and to like just do what they need without ever considering your own preferences. And I don't know, it's been pretty harmonious. I've kind of enjoyed it as like an addition to like, studies have been a difference from me doing, imaginative work, and now doing a little bit of like direction where somebody else is directing me, like as opposed to me directing myself. It's been a nice little change of pace. I wonder if this is what it's like for people who work full-time freelance, if they're just way, way less interested in having their ego in their work. Because, I never understood how people were able to do that so comfortably.
Yeah. I don't know. I've had some clients who have like very specific instructions. Like sometimes you get a client who's just like, okay, I want you to draw this guy right here in exactly this pose, but I want his hair to be like this image here. See how I've like circled it? I want the bangs to be like that, except like this gap in between this hair strand and this hair strand, I don't want that there. Knock that out. And I want him in exactly this outfit, except you see the belt buckle? Make it 2 belt buckles, bro. And then like, yeah, and they just make the image for you, you know, and you're just like a robot.
Oh my god, I got a job like that, and I hated it because it was like I couldn't figure out how to. The expectation was that I was going to follow their directions exactly, but that my painting was going to be like 50% better than the like stuff that they had given me. They had given me like a whole rough version of the piece. Like they had basically painted it for me. They'd done all the drawing and like half the painting. They're like, just do this, but Mohrbacher style. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, this is gonna be easy. And I was doing my best to just like accept everything they were telling me in good faith and like do what they asked. And in the end, I just felt like I did what they did, but slightly worse, but also in a painted style as opposed to like something that was more flat. And yeah, I charged them a lot of money for that too. I'm pretty sure that they were happy to see me leave at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Didn't really work out.
Yeah, I didn't like the stuff I did like that either. I kind of didn't mind doing it because I got through it really fast because it's like, well, I have to make 0 decisions, so just a matter of like drawing the thing like exactly the way they said it. But like they're all like some of my worst drawings and like nobody likes them. And, yeah.
Yeah, I never posted this piece. This piece was for a cover for a game, and it's the only time I've ever done that. And I saw a YouTube video with the art on it in my YouTube feed, so I know that piece of art has been used somewhere. It's been released. I could probably post it. I haven't posted it. It's like, oh, I've got this free finished painting that no one's ever seen. Should I post that somewhere? It's like, nah, I'm good.
Just see the thumbnail of that one. In the
I mean, I got really sick of it, but also I didn't get to finish it because I was working on it the same week that I ended up having to evacuate for Hurricane Ian.
Oh.
So like I was working on it, and then I got like 90, maybe 80% of the way through it, and then I was like, "Hey, there's a hurricane about to hit me, and I'm about to drive up to Chicago for like somewhere between 2 days and 2 months, and I can't give you any more info because I don't know whether this hurricane's going to hit my house or not, and it's like where this hurricane hits is going to determine whether or not I'll be back on this before the deadline's out." And they're like, oh, we'll just pay you for the whole thing and just call it a day. And I was like, oh, that's great. Well, been great working with you. See you never. And then I like bailed and like I'd never finished the painting. And that was it. I got my paycheck and called it. But I wondered maybe they were eager to see me go because it wasn't working out the way they hoped.
Yeah, could be.
Could be.
Client work.
Yep. I don't love it.
Oh man, I've been like I was kind of like procrastinating on like client work big time for like a week. I've been trying to like follow your advice about the Kickstarter thing and like trying to like get a bit closer to my influences by like spending a long time on a painting and growing my social medias by like trying to have something to post every day, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And there's just like not a whole lot of time to chip away at client work while I'm like doing all that.
Yeah, I've been doing something similar, and I have not been finished. I'm 2 weeks late on my painting now. That's like been a day or two away from being finished since the first of the month.
Yeah. Oh god, I sat back down to like get to work on some client stuff the other day, and it's just immediately like, oh, this is why I wasn't finding painting fun before, because I was doing this all day.
You're out here
fun.
playing around, messing around, hanging out with the boys all day, and then you go to try to do painting, and you're like, Client
Yeah.
work is a bummer. Hanging out on Discord with the bros, like chilling and doing studies, is way easier.
Yeah. Yeah, it's way easier. The stuff I make looks better. People on social media like it more. I do client work and it's like, oh god, I'm not getting paid enough for this, and it's making me want to chew my own arms off in frustration. Um, Luckily, I resisted the impulse.
I've been so what I've been doing, because I'm a fucking grustler, like a stone cold grustler, is this last couple weeks I've been waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning with an alarm, so I can wake up early to take care of all of the important stuff I need to do and get it out of the way first, so that I've got so my day starts off at 6, and it means like coffee and email, and then some days meetings, gym, administrative tasks, taking care of like what is the equivalent for me of client work, and then noon I hop online and I start doing this stuff. And so like the solution to that has been to like separate out all the stuff that I need to do that I like can't fall too far behind on, like in the 6 hours prior to me starting doing studies and like being a public person. Like 6 hours, you can do a lot of damage in 6 hours if you like actually reserve a 6 hour stretch for yourself to do that sort of shit. Like, can you imagine like how much, if you sat down and did 6 solid hours of work before noon, like how much further you could get in basically any professional pursuit?
So that's actually what I've been doing. Is I've been waking up every day at 4 a.m.
4.
and I start off my day with just getting ready, taking a shower, getting all that, doing some like quick house chores in the morning, and then I finish all that around like 5:10, and then I just keep drawing until like later into the afternoon.
Telling you, man, this is the Huckleberry Day of Reposa right here.
And I've been getting a lot better these past days, because I've been grinding really hard on this, because I just really wanna, I don't wanna live a life of regret. Like
Like fucking
I just
like Ken Watanabe from Inception. An old man filled
I
with
hate
regret.
I hate to break it to you, but if you're looking to live a life without regret, I do not recommend becoming an artist. Just be an accountant.
No, I think you're wrong. I think you're 100% wrong. I think the only way if you live a life as an accountant and you own a boat and you do everything safe and you never do anything creative, you are going to die full of regret. And that like making creative work is like one of the only ways that you're going to be like, you know what? Everything, all my relationships fell apart, and like I was broke, but I made a lot of cool shit, and I hung out with cool people while I was doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just kidding. I don't really regret being an artist. Well, sometimes I do though, but I don't know. I'm just neurotic. I'd probably have regrets no matter what I did.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I have 2 good friends who are both accountants.
Really?
They both keep telling me all the time. Yeah. And they both keep telling me all the time, like, "Damn man, I wish I were an artist." And I'm like, "Damn man, I wish I were an accountant."
An accountant. I bet you H&R Block's always hiring, dude. I believe in you. You could pass whatever certification it would take to be able to be a full-time accountant.
Yeah, me and my lack of a high school diploma.
You don't have a high school diploma? What'd you do?
No, I my dad took me out of school to like homeschool me ostensibly, but it just turned into nothing. So.
Is that a good story to share? We can skip past it if you don't want to.
I mean, I can share it. I don't know how interesting it'll be to the stream.
It sounds
And it makes me
potentially
look like kind of a
personal,
loser.
so I don't want to like pressure you into
But,
it. But
like-
that's a weird situation.
Okay, yeah, everybody was like grilling me about it on the like. It doesn't seem weird to me because it's just my life or whatever, right?
Sure.
Like, but everybody like I was telling this like the Discord chat about this the other day, and everyone was like, "Wait, what? Like that happened? And then you did this other thing? Can you tell me about like that?" And I'm like, "Why do you like? It's really like my story's really boring, guys. Like, I, um, but yeah. I just I don't know. I had like undiagnosed ADHD as a kid and like wasn't doing very well in school. And I had a bunch of behavioral issues. Actually, this is the exciting part that always makes people like I don't know, it like blows people's minds is like when I was a kid, I like assaulted a teacher
Oh yeah.
and got kicked out of school. Yeah, and had to go to like um like a special school basically. It had like normal kids in it, but it had like a special program for like kids with like significant behavioral issues.
I also went to a
Um,
special school in junior high and into first couple of years of high school. So this isn't
Yeah.
blowing my mind too badly. Like I think my parents got lucky that it didn't spill over into like me assaulting a teacher, but I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah. Yeah, and so like I ended up being friends with all these kids who like kept getting in trouble with the police for like following other kids around with knives after school and things like that. But I don't know. They were always really nice to me. But yeah, I guess they had like issues too. And one of the teachers who was kind of in charge of that whole program and stuff was like a big nerd. He was into like Magic the Gathering and video games and that kind of thing, and had like a Magic the Gathering like club after school and that kind of thing. So I made a lot of friends. I was doing like horrible in school. Undiagnosed ADHD. Was just like failing every class. Was like sleeping through class and stuff all the time. So my dad just like took me out of school. Basically, all the adults in my life, I don't know, just kind of like dropped the ball. The teachers didn't know what to do with me and weren't willing to like invest much in the way of like resources into helping me, and like my dad had no idea what to do. My dad decided to like homeschool me, but he didn't have the resources to homeschool me, so it just turned into nothing. I ended up like playing World of Warcraft all day every day with Australians. For like 6 years. Yeah, I ended up playing on the
You got that what they call the Aussie homeschool treatment, which is that you
Yeah.
you just grind Burning Crusade with Australians for 4 years instead of
Yeah.
learning that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. It's a decent
Yeah.
trade-off, to be honest.
Yeah, in some ways. I ended up playing on, totally by accident, the server which was the unofficial Australian server and the unofficial gay server. So everyone I knew was Australian and gay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Bunch of gay
And yeah,
Aussies.
I don't know. I just kind of like it's boring. I just kind of wasted like my entire adolescence on like,
Uh-huh.
playing video games.
Yep, sounds pretty familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel you, bro. When like I also had behavioral issues growing up, man. Like I almost got kicked out of school for arson and all that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Badass.
yeah, it's fun.
I tried to hit a kid in the head with a lock, like a master lock.
Oh,
Like a fight or
awesome.
something. But then like they like then the next day a bunch of kids claimed that I was like had done some shit like breaking into some kid's locker. But I was home sick that day, so my parents were like, this is all bullshit. Getting you the fuck out of here. And I went off to some special school. It's like a private school. But then looking back on it, I realized that everyone in that private school, there was like one or two kids that were like they were like kids who grew up in the foster system and like never had like didn't have a good relationship with any adults and therefore were like had huge behavioral problems. But the majority of them were just super autistic. There was there was one kid in particular who was just like barely functional, autistic, and then all the rest of us were like various degrees of autistic, and we all understood that like there was a common thread that bound all of us together, something that like we could recognize was like made us different than the average person, and we wanted to believe that it was like a superpower, but we also recognized that we couldn't function entirely in society. So, but we didn't, but like there was no vocabulary for it. There was like no resources. Like this is like at this time, like there was no understanding of like autism spectrum disorder and like how it manifests and like what you do for these people. So we were all treated like we were geniuses. It was like school for the gifted or whatever, which, you know, it's like this stuff tends to correlate with fairly high like intelligence, but like in a way where it's like you're really smart in some key ways, but then not able to do basic social stuff in other ways. And so it's like you're both extremely smart and extremely dumb, but like on different spectrums at the same time. And so I was in a school like that for 4 years. And it gave me time, I think, to kind of like develop, you know, a sense of identity. Because it was, I mean, it's key years, teenage years. And like during that time, like it wasn't like I was up to a lot socially. Because like everyone I was around was completely socially inept. So we were all terrible at it. Which meant that like there wasn't any real jealousy towards like popular kids or whatever. Because it was like I had a graduating class of 9. You know, there's like 9 kids. And like none of them were good at like holding down a regular social life. And so like there was no social strata. Which was maybe kind of good. I'm not sure. Like, I don't have a lot to compare it against. Maybe it was kind of good for somebody who, like, was in my situation. But, yeah, I look back on that now, and I'm like, damn, that's... Like, my younger kid has got the same thing as me. And so it turns out they've actually developed, like, a lot of resources for schools, like, for public schools. In the intervening years, they figured out that, like, a bunch of kids have some of these same issues and have developed systems for them to survive in public environments and public schools. And it's like, you know, executive dysfunction manifests as ADHD. I got diagnosed as ADHD at one point when I was young, but it was, but like I never got a diagnosis at the time of autism spectrum disorder, which is probably more accurate, but it's hard to tell because I've never gotten like a fully professional diagnosis. Like, but I mean, I went to junior high and high school with a bunch of kids that were full-blown autistic, and I fit in just fine with them. and then, you know, college comes along and it's like, you know, do you pick one area of high interest to dedicate 4 years to? And I was like, oh, easy. Like now you're talking my language. And so it was like, stick me in a 4-year program where all I need to do was focus on one thing I'm interested in. And it was like easy street. You know, one of the best artists in my school, like one of the only kids who tried or cared. Like 4 solid years of like focusing on getting good at only one thing. I did awesome. And like I came out of there with like job opportunities and like, you know, a sense of identity and like relationships and like, you know, all kinds of good stuff. But yeah, those years of like awkwardness in like junior high and high school, if you have something like I don't know what, I mean, I think it might be better now, but like 20 years ago, they didn't have shit. So it was a tough time.
Yeah. I actually had a bit of a sorry, you finished.
Well, like nowadays it's funny to me because like there's this trend online where everyone is calling themselves autistic now, where it's like it's just like the thing everyone says. But I'm like, and I've had plenty of people tell me that they don't think of me as being somebody who has social skill issues. But yeah, it's I've been in my head for a lot longer than people online know me, and I can tell you matter of factly, like I've been on this autism train for a lot longer than like it's been popular on the internet. I was autistic before it was cool, you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's
So yeah, I don't know. It's funny though. I mean, it's like you grow into yourself as you get older, and like it's like so all the things that like have been struggles for during those weird, awkward intermediate years. Now it's just like it's way less of a big deal. Like as an adult, I'm able to manage myself and like know myself so much better that like I'm able to deal with all of these like these peculiarities like without struggling too much with it. I mean, most of the time, but like yeah. So I'm just imagining like you maybe had some of the same traits. Like if you were diagnosed ADHD, put in a special school, and then spent like the better part of your youth socializing in the most insular and roundabout way possible. I got to tell you, I can relate. Totally relate. Like that to me seems like the standard, and like to like use art as an outlet for it also to me feels like 100% natural, because like that's one of the things that art's good for is like finding a connection with people and like expressing yourself to the world, when that is like you have a harder time with that than average.
Yeah.
I also heard the other day that there's a correlation between this same spectrum of disorders and gender dysphoria. That like all these people that ended up in like Tumblr communities or whatever that all have like, non-typical gender identification or like difficulty identifying gender or whatever, that correlates with spectrum disorder as well. And I'm like, that makes a ton of sense considering everything I've seen on the internet over the last 10 years.
Yeah. Oh God, there's so many things I want to say.
Yeah. Where do you want to start?
Okay. So first off, I guess I had like a similar experience that you seem to have had with art school, with World of Warcraft actually. Like, I don't have a high school diploma, but like I'm not actually particularly stunted, like in any area that like high school is supposed to like prepare you for. Like I could do most high school level math. I have like perfectly good like verbal communication skills. My reading comprehension is great. My writing is like good enough. I have like way above average knowledge of like geography and stuff. And I can like type and stuff too, which I couldn't do in school. Like I could never, like there were like typing classes and stuff, and I like failed all of them. But like the second I had to like learn how to type to play an MMO, I got really good at typing in like a week.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
And like I could never wrap my head around like polynomials or whatever, until I was doing like high level rating in World of Warcraft and wanted to like understand underlying damage formulas and things like that.
Warcraft education, baby. Let's get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, oh man, I had like terrible social skills when I was like younger too. But like you can kind of like you actually strike me as having well above average social skills right now. But the thing is, I feel like
people know me through the internet.
Yeah,
you never see me trying to hang out with a bunch of other middle-aged dads, like drink beers and talk about non-art related topics. It's a totally different experience.
Yeah, I'll bet.
You also, I'm sure you've caught me once or twice. There's a conversation where it's moved on from a topic, and I'll circle back on it embarrassingly late, like with a total disregard for like the flow of the conversation, shit like that. That kind of stuff gives me away for anybody who's paying close attention.
I'm about to pull that maneuver in a second here.
Okay.
But first,
go for it.
Yeah. Like I think autistic, ADHD, whatever, people can sort of like teach themselves social skills a little bit.
Yes.
My social skills were really bad, and I like everyone like hated me, and well, all the normal people hated me. The other weird kids who kept getting in trouble and stuff like that, I kind of got along with them.
Right.
But like, yeah, everyone else just like hated me and thought I was weird. But like, a friend of mine pulled me aside, who I met through playing World of Warcraft, pulled me aside one day and was like, "Hey, I think maybe you should read these books." And he like gave me a bunch of audiobooks.
Was it a bunch of
like,
stoicism?
No. It was like Dale Carnegie and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
And I was listening to it and I was like, "Oh, that's how this stuff works."
Yeah. Can
And
you give me
then-
the
and
manual
ever
on how to
since-
talk to people at parties, please?
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah. And like once I just had a manual on it, it's like, oh, okay, that's how social cues work. All right, I get it now. And since then, I've been like great at making friends, and I'm generally like reasonably popular wherever I go. But like, I had to like figure it out. Like it didn't come naturally at
So
all.
like, I had a very extremely experience to you, Jazz, but I don't think I have anything, right? I feel like, you know, I'm pretty normal. I've never been like special or anything, but growing up, man, I've always been so socially inept. You know, I couldn't build relationships with people. Everyone hated me, like everyone. Like throughout my middle school, I was known as the weird kid. There was rumors about me throughout the school. Anytime I tried to make friends, they just pushed me aside because other people that thought I was weird, they would tell them not to make friends with me and this and that. And you know, that's just how I grew up throughout, you know, all of school. But I still had like this weird confidence about me that I would continue to go about, and I didn't really understand how to make friends until, like you said, I read a book. I'm
Yeah.
like, fuck, wait, that's how you communicate with people?
Yeah.
And just watching YouTube videos, like how people interact and this and that, and I'm like, holy crap, it's all starting to make sense. And then I realized, you know, like yeah, I was probably oversharing a lot when I was speaking. I was too passionate, but I realized that being too passionate about when you speak to someone or being too upfront about things is not how you're supposed to come across to people. I learned that you can't just start talking to someone and just start bringing up a bunch of topics, because then they just, you know, you overwhelm people.
Yeah.
You know, it was rough, you know. And then, you know, growing up, I did have a lot of depression because, you know, those relationships, they built a bad, you know, a bad mental space for me growing up. And you know, so I kind of isolated myself from people. Though I still you know, met some people here and there, but I tended, even with the people I got closer to, I would separate myself from, because you know, that experience of just everyone hating you and not wanting you because of the way you are just made it feel like if no one wants me, then it's better for me just to be alone.
Yep.
Yep.
It's tough to figure out where you're, like, because it's like there's no turning off the urge to want to connect to people. Like, it's just a part of who we are as human beings, and so figuring out how to grow a real connection with people is like, it's not a skill we can get away from ever. I think we need to all figure it out in some way at some point. But yeah,
So-
I think it's a skill that can be learned over time. I've definitely developed it a lot over the years, like intentionally thinking about, thinking back on like conversations I've had, but also like one of the things I realized was that the people I listened to on podcasts, that I could take on some of their personality traits if I wanted to. Not their personality, but like their way of speaking. Like things that I found charming about people who I would listen to, that I realized I could copy them. And that was like a great inroad for being able to like come across better to people, to have the same thoughts and feelings and like want to have the same kind of conversations, but just like not come off quite so bad by, you know, borrowing from people who were doing it better than me, and just like learning by like looking for positive examples in the world. Like, because I wasn't always surrounded by them in my personal life, and so I could take from other sources. I could take from like public personalities and things, and over time, it's like I've expanded that repertoire, and it's been really healthy. And so now I get this like comment all the time. People are really like, yeah, you seem like above average in terms of your ability to socialize. Like, yeah, in certain settings, when we're talking about art, and it's like in a situation where I have some level of control, like I can do it. But boy, it's not come easy. It's been a long journey.
Yeah, I feel you, bro. Nowadays, I still struggle very much with like maintaining my personal relationships in real life, because I'm now like a very solitude person, I mainly just keep to myself and just chill. Unless, I find someone I really relate to and I really want to talk to, then I'll go on my spiel. But then after that, I'll have times where the energy just dies down and I'm just quiet. I just won't speak, and people get confused with me. They think I'm upset or something, but I'm like, I just don't feel like talking. Well, it's weird.
So circling back to a thing that came up in the conversation forever ago.
Yes.
I forgot one thing about like the weird shit that went on with me as a teenager. I ran into one of the kids from the elementary school I got kicked out of for like beating up a teacher. When like she and I were both like 16, 17 or something like that at the time, and she just like recognized me randomly. I was like walking around town, and she was with one of her friends, and she was like, "Oh, hey, you're so and so such and such. Remember me? I'm like so and so, right?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." And she was like, "You remember when you got like kicked out of school for like beating up Mrs. Such and Such?" I was like, "Yeah."
And you're like,
yeah,
nope, I
that."
forgot. It didn't stick with me.
And she was like, "That was so cool. Everyone thought it was awesome because we all hated that bitch. Good job."
You're like, I could have been hanging out with this baddie the whole time.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, how's everyone doing?
Hey, how's it going?
How's it going, man?
It's going okay.
You could have been hanging out with that cool girl the whole time.
Yeah. Dang. Missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then but if you did, you discover the cool girl wasn't the cool girl.
Yeah, well, we were asking this before. What actually makes anybody cool? Because I think I think somebody who doesn't know about any of this like indoor kid shit that like I grew up with is probably really cool.
I'm gonna be honest with you, King. I don't think anyone is. I think it's all just ego based. Like, if they got enough ego in them, then they'll probably be like, as long as they can just keep being happy, they could probably seem like a cool person. But I just think it's kind of false. I think you can be popular and all that, but I don't really think it's something anyone should strive for.
I've met some cool people. Like I meet them, I'm like, yeah, that's a cool ass fucking person.
Yeah, but then there's a difference because it's like the popular type of cool, and then there's he's a really nice type of guy.
Yeah.
Sorry for just bursting into that conversation there.
That's all right, man. Burst in like the Kool-Aid man.
Well,
Right through the wall.
I still think that your whole story about getting kicked out of school and then being raised by gay Australians is pretty funny.
That is
Yeah.
hilarious, and I don't care if that's taken out of context or if it's not, or if it's even false. That is truth to me now.
Like, you're like, I was rejected by society. I went into the woods and I was raised by a pack of gay Australians.
Yeah.
I like the fact that you said they're a pack of gay Australians, not that they're people.
Yeah, it was a wild conglomerate of gay Australians. Came and swept you away and took you to the promised land of Azeroth.
Gaystrians.
where you learn the ways of their people. Use the C word way more than is allowable on Twitch.com.
I forgot we're on
dude.
Twitch. I forgot we're on Twitch.
Yeah.
I've actually had people call me out for like using Australian vernacular. Like I was talking to a friend like a couple months ago, and he was like, "Hey man, this question's gonna seem random, but like, have you ever been to Australia?" And I was like, no, I haven't been to Australia, but I used to like play World of Warcraft.
Yeah, you're like, what? You're like, why? Because I always want to eat at Macca's.
No, he was like, no. It's you use like Australian vernacular sometimes. I have this one friend from Australia, and she talks like you. She says heaps all the time.
Oh yeah, he used the word heaps, and
Yeah.
you asked to borrow my whippy snippy.
Whippy snippy. That's why. That's so.
I love Australian vernacular. For some reason the Australians are like big on YouTube, and so like I follow an inordinate number of Australians on YouTube. Like for such a small number of people, they have like an incredible number of successful YouTube channels, and so I like pick it all up through there, and it's always charming.
Dude, it's like the better English accent.
Oh, it is, yeah. But then,
Yeah.
heaps is always charming, and like all the weird slang terms are always so like innocent.
This is when they call you a slack C word and tell you brekie's ready in the morning.
Yeah. Well, I mean, brekkie is cute, but it's the intense amount of use of the C word that is like the thing that like ultimately ends up becoming a problem. All right, I'm just farting around at this point. I'm done with this study. What a difficult day. It was 2.5 hours to produce. I mean, I'm happy with it. It's just I need to put some discipline back in my life when it comes to this. When it comes to these studies.
What it's all about. That's what Gary Vee told me.
My study came out pretty bad. To be honest with you, this does not look like a canyon.
I need to put some process back in here because I was trying to like mess around with my process a little bit, and it delayed me and threw me off, and then now I'm way over on time, like depressingly over on time.
Yep, I wasted a ton of time because I was just talking and like spinning in my desk chair.
You're just over there stimming.
You're just twiddling his fingers like, yeah.
No, not I don't even know what that is. Spinning.
I know,
like,
spinning,
I have
but
a wireless headset.
Yeah, I know, but that's like a thing like autistic people do is they like stimulate themselves physically as like a soothing mechanism. So like they're spinning in a circle. This is your form of stimming.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Got it. Yeah, I do that a lot. I don't think I'm autistic though.
You might be on the edge of the spectrum. Who knows? It's hard to say.
Yeah.
It's hard to diagnose as an adult. Like, I heard that like a lot of the diagnosis that they have for it is actually like the same they give for a kid. So like you go into a doctor's office, and they like give you like toys to play with, and they're like, "What does this toy want to say to this toy?" And you're like, like as an adult, you've developed enough like coping mechanisms and like know like what you should say in certain situations that you're not gonna be like. That you're not going to play along with the premise the way that a kid would, you know?
Yeah. Oh man.
Funny. He's like, this one wants to eat this one entirely.
Yeah.
Wants to cut off its head.
All right. I'm posting in dailies here. Let's see. Ooh.
Yeah. Even though it's not as far along as it probably should have been if I'd been more focused, I think I learned some shit from this one. You picked a good one, Pete.
Did I pick a good one? Oh, did you post in dailies yet?
Just putting the reference into the file right now, then I'll post it. Gotta resize it. Oh no, she's too little.
I remember hearing from my mom, I was like a very quiet baby.
Oh, I'm looking through the The dailies. Oh, this one's cool. Sager's got this texture brush abuse. This is people out there. They're making texture brush look like there's something really happening there. And for me, I just feel like it makes me look dumber and worse at painting. Ace is out here doing some keyframe studies for movies. Looking good. I love seeing the activity in the dailies. Every day I go to post. Is this board ape being sculpted? Oh, this one's really good. I'm in streamer mode, so I can't see everyone's name. Oh, shit. Jake is doing, like, cool-looking guys instead of goofy-looking guys, and he's pulling it off.
Oh, I want to see the cool guys.
Damn. Jake has been putting in a lot of effort. Like, every single day, it's like new character designs, new ideas. Just like casually throwing it down over and over again.
Man is a machine. This Min K guy, I don't know if you've had the opportunity to talk to him much. He's quite good too. And
yeah,
like,
his stuff.
Interesting.
His stuff is cool.
Like, I also just mean he's like super interesting to talk to because he's like interested in politics and he lives in Vietnam.
Oh, interesting.
So he like knows all kinds of shit about like China and like stuff. Like
Jackalac's
really,
like
really
weird
cool
demon guy is so fucking good. And there's a lot of cool shit happening in the dailies right now. And even if like everybody who's like taking time to like make art and then post it, I'm so proud of them. Like,
holy shit, areas went crazy.
Oh damn, son.
You see that?
Which one?
Yeah.
Dude, areas went crazy. It's the most recent one.
Oh my god. Oh yeah, this came out great. Oh, and then here's yours. Oh, that's fun. You just got a little bit of your own spin on it.
Yeah, so like the thing I learned from this is first of all the like the just petting away with like weird effects layers and things is working. But I did a lot of just like staring at it and like thinking for a minute, how do I make some just like light brush marks to like suggest reflections in the hair and stuff like that, and it was like working out really well. I spent forever just like petting away at the clothes and like not really achieving anything, but like the way it is right now, like the painting on the head, I maybe spent like a minute or two on it. It came together so fast.
I wanna show you something. I'm gonna show you a little quick trick because this is maybe instructive for other people, and you're always patient with me poking away at your stuff. Blending mode stuff. This is one of the things I love about that sort of overlay blending mode family, whether it's soft light, hard light, or overlay. Is like one of the things that's happening here in the source one is there's this kind of like warmth that's happening that's kind of emanating from the light. And so it like the further it gets from this light bit, the more it kind of gets grayish. And you have this like saturated bits that are like right near the edge of it. For yours, like you've got a little bit less of that. It's just like, this is the thing I love about blending modes is just make one layer and you just do a little quick whatever at the edge. And it instantly makes like the sense of light and like the kind of subsurface scattering happening in the skin tone like pop out, and it's like zero effort. And so when you start noticing those like subtle like kind of gradations that are happening as these sort of half tones and these small changes in saturation that are happening, like you don't need to like be smart at every step. Do what you're doing and then throw one more layer on top of it to add that extra little bit of subtlety. And then, you know, this is where I find it difficult, like how someone's going to make an organized layer stack is because like from here, you're not going to be able to stay on overlay. Like you have to go back. If you wanted to clean it up, you'd have to go back to normal and then go back in and start like messing with the edges again. And so you'd have to just make this quick 5-minute excursion and then go back to what you're doing, but then it makes your layer stack messy.
Yeah. So the other thing that dawned on me is I didn't like do any like clipping masks or anything for this, and I was like, when I was painting the head, I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to like brush over the skin with like a big brush, and then it's gonna bleed into the hair. But it bled into the hair, and it's like, oh, that actually makes it look better, not worse.
Oh, that when stuff starts bleeding over a little bit on your lines and
Yeah.
whatever with blending modes and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I like brush over the like shadows on the skin with some like orange on a like soft light layer or something, and I'm like, oh no, it's gonna hit the hair, and then it hits the hair, and it's like,
Yeah, well, the
oh, it actually made
references
it
you were
better.
showing me, where you're like, I really love these styles. It's like full of accidental marks that are overlapping in places they're not supposed to, and then the artist is building on that. And that's been my experience with painting as well, is that you find these like moments of you're just like, this is why I'm always adding this stuff at a point in the painting where it's a little bit looser, because like when you just allow yourself to be messier with it, you end up with these little accidental wins, and then you get to take all those forwards, and then the ones that don't pan out, you just throw them out. So you're just giving yourself like this opportunity to stumble into like good moments, and then eliminating anything that doesn't like pass muster. It's it's not reliable, but it's easy.
Yeah.
Pete, we've got some questions in chat about the name of the original artist for these references.
Uh-oh. I think that the master study one, I think it's Solomon. I have the folders named Solomon, and I remember him having the same name twice. Some joke about artist so good he got named the same thing twice. But you'd be best off reverse image searching anything if you have questions. Yeah, I think this is a Solomon painting, but could be wrong. Quite a painting though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I wish I could. This is the sort of thing when I'm talking about this kind of like effortless painterliness, and like this control over these different regions of the painting, where like, you know, the skin tone is being treated so differently from the armor and so different from the cloth, and this like loose brushiness that like creates these messy areas feeling so energetic, and like, you know, even in spaces where it's like totally unfinished and messy, still feels like intentional and a part of this big whole. And like, you know, just a few tight marks carving in, surrounded by all of this like looser, mushier stuff, turns into what feels almost like photorealistic looking area. I want to be able to pull that off. And I've seen plenty of artists that seem to be able to develop into that, and it's not been part of my repertoire. It's not like I want to reinvent myself to look a certain way, but I want to have it in my arsenal. Yeah, so many subtleties in here that I'm like losing my mind over right now, freaking out looking at this thing. It's so good. But I'm never going to study this painting because now it's past.
Isn't that how it always is? There's just so much good art on the internet. It's like, oh, I want to learn from this one and this one.
Mandela was asking if the painting suffers from yellowed varnish. I mean, maybe. It's hard to tell. There's a famous painting called The Night Watch, that the name of the painting's not actually The Night Watch. It's called like Men Mustered Under the Command of Lieutenant something something. And it's called The Night Watch because the varnish had blackened so badly over time that it went from a day scene to a night scene. So it's really hard to tell when you're looking at paintings in a museum whether or not they are intended to be like rich and dark and atmospheric, or maybe have this, you know, warm pallor over everything, or if the materials have just aged and it needs to be restored. Hard to tell. I mean, if you were an expert in it, you'd probably have like a better, if you used words like craquelage, you'd probably be really good at being able to answer those questions. But for me, I have like a passing understanding of it only. You want to look at some tutorials before we go?
I'm down.
Can you DM me one real quick?
Oh fuck! I'm gonna have to dig through like weird Japanese YouTube channels.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go find. I'm just gonna search Photoshop painting tutorial. Also, the audio is not going to come through on Discord. The audio mix is going to come through fine on Twitch, but not on like what's it called? On Discord. So you guys won't be able to hear tutorials through me, but the Twitch people will be able to hear it just fine.
Okay, so I'm just scrolling through 5 years of this Korean. I think it's like an art school that has a YouTube channel. Because there's a video in here that has a guy painting in a weird way.
If anybody has any tutorials they want me to react to, like, feel free to drop them in the chat. But I just searched Photoshop paint tutorial, and now we have an opportunity to take a look at some. I want to maybe react to people who I don't know who they are, so I'm going to skip people like Cynics for today, because I'm just, this is my first day reacting. I got to figure it out. Oh, use how to make the smudge painting. That's weird. Mountains. This thumbnail looks pretty rough. Oil painting filter in Photoshop. Oh my God. How to blend colors. Whoa. 1 million? I'm totally curious. This has a million views on it, and it is totally weird looking in the thumbnail. I gotta see what this guy's up to.
Hello and what's up, peeps? This is the Geek
The audio's pretty bad.
The audio is not great, but you guys, if you wanna listen along, you're gonna have to be on Twitch, because it's not gonna come through. I don't know how to get it to come through on Discord. Dustin and I might mess with it some other time. Dogan, if you want to post tutorial for me to react to, I'd be perfectly happy to react to something that someone's linking me, rather than to yeah, you can share links in here. Rather than me like pulling up random people, because I don't want to like piss off the person who I'm reacting to. So be interested in reactions to old master paintings. There's a ton of great artists out there. That's an interesting idea, but the problem is that I don't know that much about classical painting technique, and I don't know that much about art history. So I'll just be like, damn, they're really good at painting. Let's see.
So I was watching some of my older videos, and some of you may know that I had made a video almost 5 years back about 4 different ways of blending colors in Photoshop, and a lot of people found the video very useful, especially beginner artists. And the reason I made the video was because a lot of people wanted it, and I still get comments on many of my newer videos asking me to make a video on color blending. So as I was watching the video,
There's a comment back there that just said, how you smear it? How you smear it?
How you smear
Look, bro, gradient
make
tool.
an updated video.
Well, this guy, this demo he's got going on here, this is the smudge tool, which like I think is the thing that everyone reaches for when they're first learning how to make art. I don't know. Did you go through a smudge phase?
No, never did. I was like too bad at Photoshop. I was like, okay, there's a thing called a smudge tool, but I don't want to dig through Photoshop to find out what that is.
Too lazy to discover the laziest tool.
Yep.
I went through a smudge phase, and then I remember on the forum I was on, everyone who used smudge tool got yelled at. They're all like, it was just like, it was a sign of an amateur artist to use a smudge tool. And then I started bad mouthing anybody who was using the smudge tool, because it was like, that was like it was a sign that you didn't understand. You didn't understand what the language we were all speaking.
On color
I've
blending.
seen you do it on One Fantastic Week.
You've seen me use the
tell
smudge
people
tool or bad mouth?
No. Tell people off for using a smudge tool.
Yeah. It's an old habit. I want to believe everyone can like work in their own perfect Like Sullivan is out here saying like, yeah, I'm in my smudge phase right now. So I don't want to be like bad mouthing people for using tools wrong, but yeah, maybe keep exploring if you're in the smudge phase.
So this video is
Did you
not
turn
gonna
on
be
subtitles?
Oh, I can turn on subtitles. It's a good idea. Thank you. Where's? Oh yeah. CC. There we go.
about theory or technical like the last one. It's gonna be a lot more practical and problem and solution oriented. So what's the problem or the question? The problem is how to go from this to this. How to
I've never started a painting here, but like I've been seeing a bunch of tutorials that have been saying that it's like a really good idea to start off with this kind of like solid layered state and then kind of blend it down from there. It's totally unrelatable to me. If you like, but this is presuming that this is like the way that painters start, I think is a little peculiar. It's because like no one's ever going to do this traditionally, because you're never going to be able to make that kind of like perfectly solid mark and then while the paint is still wet, like push it around. All right, I got a link from
basic
Dogan. I'm gonna.
flats done like cell
I feel
shading.
like the advantage of it is it forces you to commit. Like a lot of people when they're like learning how to paint or whatever, they're too like timid when like trying to decide like, okay, this right here is a form shadow. This here is a cast shadow. This is a highlight. And they just kind of like mush together a bunch of stuff and it's like not clear what the lighting is and it looks bad. And this
Yeah.
is like
This is more clear cut. I mean, it's just like that's where the mark is, right? Those are the
yeah.
To a polished, smoothly blended and rendered output. That's the challenge. And to
but the other challenge is that if you're going to smooth it, you can't smooth everything evenly. Like the thing the tutorial might get here, but like because you can see he's smoothing through like these larger forms and then you need to cut at the harder edges. And so determining where you're going to cut make a smooth edge versus cutting a harder one, and then the in-between. I've yelled at you about this. That's painting.
Yep.
Like, it's all about a choice about where you make edges. So, like, presuming that all the edges start super hard and then you selectively pick which ones to soften is going from, like, one extreme and then trying to create a gradation all the way down where it's like everything starts all the way hard and then it's like starting on a purely white canvas and then only making things darker. It's like starting on one extreme and then trying to create a gradient that runs all the way to the other end is like so much harder to me than starting in the middle and then working outwards. And I would presume the same thing is true for edges as it is for values.
find out the solution, you need to watch the video till the end.
Oh, you got to watch to the end,
So to
guys.
start off, I'm going to be showing not one, but 4 different ways in which you can blend colors in Photoshop. So here's the first method, and it's manual color mixing. So the idea here is to pick color from the first side and paint it on the second side, then pick color from the second side and paint it on the first side, and then pick the new midtone color from the central area and then paint it on both sides. And then just keep repeating the process until the sharp border in the center completely disappears into a smooth transition from the first color to the second color. So that's the whole idea. So now let's try it. I'm gonna select the default soft round brush, keep the
There's nothing default about softening round. Soft round brush is a tool that should be only used with extreme amounts of care. I think I've done this demo before, but like soft edged brushes in Photoshop are super dangerous to use because it's really difficult to like figure out where the stroke is beginning and ending because it's got a soft edge. And like you don't notice it when you're up close looking at it, but then when you zoom out, you can see it's all splotchy and weird. It's like really, really hard to blend effectively and have this level of control with a soft brush. So I thought he was going to basically start with like the way the way he's describing it sounds like the way that I blend, but he's using a tool that is like potentially makes things like way more difficult, even though you would think a soft edge brush is what would make this easy.
opacity of the brush low, around 20%.
Yeah,
Keep both
I find
pen
in
pressure
order to use the
options
soft
on.
brush,
and
you either have to have some like I think I heard you saying this. You either have to have like some really specific thing, or you have to be like using clipping masks or like the lasso tool and stuff like that heavily?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
Well,
Like I was getting interesting results with like using a gradient with lasso. Like I would say lasso plus soft brush could probably create some better results.
Yeah.
actually, I know someone who used the soft brush extremely effectively.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's useless, but it's like you either have to build your entire personality around it, or you have to use it with very specific intention. Like it's very good for certain types of effects and in certain specific situations, but for like general blending, for general rendering, yeah, I use the hard round brush, but with the flow turned down. Softening the brush edge is like
That's-
not the solution that most people are looking for when they're looking to blend.
Something just popped into my head. Fucking apparently Dan Luvisi, his method is to literally just use the soft brush and like zoom in really close, just paint everything with the soft brush.
Dan
so there's
Luvisi,
always
huh?
a guy. There's always
a guy because
something, yeah.
what is an airbrush but a soft edge brush? So if you can figure out how to like control the soft brush in a way to still be able to carve an edge, maybe like it's possible. Like, but you know that airbrush look, like the bad airbrush look, like that is what the soft brush ultimately does.
Side, paint on the
Yeah,
right
Christopher
side,
Young does
pick
a really
from the
good
right
job
side,
of it.
paint on the left side, and pick from the center, paint it on both sides, and just keep repeating the process until.
Oh, his opacity is at
border
20%.
between completely
That's gonna make it
disappears.
harder.
Smooth transition.
But this is part of the reason why a soft brush is tough, is because you get all this sort of soft gradient where, you know, between there, but then the actual hard edge, you have to go over it at 100% before you're able to get it. So if your opacity is at 20% and you got a soft edge brush, you're going to have to hit this thing like 1,000 times to get rid of that line.
And
Yeah,
there
I'm
it
not
is,
sure why you would lower the
beautiful
opacity
and smooth.
on a soft
He's,
brush.
he's had to speed up he's actually had to speed up the tutorial in order to make
And
show
now
it
let's proceed to the
reasonably.
second method.
Hey, he blended it
and that's
pretty good.
the
Nice job.
smudge method.
Good
So
job, buddy.
Smudge
for this, I'm gonna
method.
be
Let's
taking the
go.
smudge tool and
Let's
then
fucking
deciding
go.
strength. If I keep the strength low, it's gonna take me forever to blend the colors, and you're just not
Oh
gonna
my
get
God,
a
and
very
it's so hard on the
smooth blend
processor.
or a very gradual transition, and it's also gonna be pretty slow and tough on your hardware.
It's like a Jello simulator.
If I keep the strength pretty high, then it's gonna be a very drastic amount of smudging, and you're not gonna get that neatness out of it. So the good idea is to keep it somewhere in the middle, like I do, somewhere around 50 to 60%, and then just smudge it. And once the middle border gets blurry, you can increase the strength and finish off the rest to get a
Ugh.
much smoother blend.
This looks
and a
awful.
much smoother transition.
Like, this looks like an
And
awful
just remember
experience
to
as an
not
artist to
make
try to
the
figure
strokes
out how to
too
get
long.
this
If
to
you blend them
not,
too much, then they're gonna take a
because it's
while.
taking
So
forever and like
keep the strokes
it's slowing the
small.
computer down, and it's
Almost
like
painting
there's no
dots
level of
with
control at
little
all.
drag. Now next we come to the third method, and that's the mixer brush technique. So with this, I'm going to be choosing the mixer brush tool, and notice the settings, and I'm going to be selecting default soft round brush, keep the size relatively large.
Default soft
Now for
round.
the
That's
wetness, if I
that
keep
sounds
it too
crazy to
low,
me.
It's going to take a bit more of brushing to
That's
get
pretty cool.
smoothness.
Hey, that worked
If
awesome.
I keep it too hard, again, the blend is
Yo,
gonna be a
mixer
bit
brush.
abrupt.
I gotta do that sometime.
So
You guys
what
want
I
to see
do
another
is-
technique?
man.
There's one he's not doing. The healing brush can actually do this. So let's say do colors here. I learned this from like a Photoshop instructional book like way back in the day. If you take the healing brush and you set it to, I don't want all layers, I want current layer, and you set it to pattern, and you make a pattern that's just solid white, and you just fill, it automatically blends the two. So you can actually, I think there's a pattern on this, but like you can use it to even make a texture between the two. That the healing brush automatically creates like a gradient. And so you fill this whole area with the healing brush stroke, and then it automatically blends the two together. I don't.
That's wild.
It's sometimes when you've got a hard edge that you just really really want to bust, you can just go like, I don't want this to be hard anymore, and you hit it with a healing brush, and it auto does like this thing. You can see wherever the brush lands, it ends up kind of like smushing it all. So it's kind of like doing a kind of like procedural version of blending. So if you have like a really organized edge, you can just go ahead and like smash it with the healing brush, and it'll like auto do that in a single stroke. And it's easy on the processor too, so it doesn't take that long to calculate. So that's one more way of doing it. Almost totally useless. I would say this method I'm demoing is not something anyone would likely want to repeat.
I keep around 20%. And notice how quickly this happens. And I personally prefer using this a lot because it gives you the fastest result and probably the cleanest result in a very short time. And one important thing to keep in mind about this method is that you have to make sure that all the colors are merged into one layer. If even one part is in a different layer, you're gonna get this weird distortions around the edge. And
That's kind of cool looking.
End up getting a smooth blend.
Oh, he's like, oh, weird distortions. I'm
Make
like,
sure
hell
the
yeah,
colors are merged
flavor.
into one layer, and you're painting on that merged layer, and there's absolutely no transparency anywhere. Great. And now
You might notice. Whoa! We need to back it up. Here, you might notice there's this checkbox up here that says sample all layers. If you do sample all layers, it will work across all layers. Like it'll make on the new layer, it'll sample from everything. It'll make an opaque patch, but you can absolutely mixer brush or healing brush or whatever, or smudge tool or anything, as long as you have the sample all layers thing checked.
always make sure that the colors are merged into one layer, and you're painting on that merged layer, and there's absolutely no transparency anywhere. Great, and now finally we come to the fourth method, and it's a little different from the others because what we'll be doing is instead of just mixing colors,
Gotta get
we'll
that
start with
default
just one color,
soft
then
brush.
Pick another color and just paint it on any of the sides using the soft round brush tool set at a low opacity. That way we're gonna get a very smooth and gradual transition from one color to the other. You can also use the gradient tool for this, but if you're trying to paint a curve,
Yeah, gradient tool. Hell yeah.
The way to go. So now that you know all of these cool techniques, it's time to apply them to solve the problem we talked about. And I'm gonna be using a mix of all four techniques, but mainly I'll be using the mixer brush tool. So what we have here is a human arm. As you can
I
see,
gotta try this mixer
shoulder,
brush thing.
tricep, bicep, and
I've heard
forearm.
tell of it,
Subject.
but I've never
Our
tried
goal
it.
right now is to use the blending techniques that we learned and apply on this to get
I'm actually tempted
a
to try the
very
healing brush
smooth
thing.
blend
It
of
was giving
colors,
me
a
the look.
properly rendered output.
You'd have to do a bunch. You'd have to do like a layer stack for it. Like you wouldn't want to do it
so
all.
that we don't get any weird distortions while using the
Oh
mixer
yeah, he's
brush
got all
tool.
his highlights and
And
shadows and
this
everything
one
on
is
separate
pretty much
layers, but he's
just
merging them
paint
all.
along the edges until the sharp edges completely blend into a very smooth and gradual transition. Same for the highlights, just like the shadows. And for complex forms like these, you might want to look at good references, because the key to really
It isn't a
is
mixture brush, it's
nice
actually an
blend
eraser.
of soft and hard edges.
Is it? Wait, what?
Everything, all the sharp edges into very
No,
smooth
I'm
edges,
not
then
playing.
chances are that it's not going to look very realistic. So always keep in mind that form is very important. So I'm just blending the areas that don't have very sharp bends.
Dude, nearly a
Brush
million
size
views. What am I
relatively
doing? I've got to
small.
make some
If
of
it's going
these.
too big, I'm gonna end up mixing
Make
a
some
lot of things at the same
tutorials.
time, which I don't want.
Well,
I
it's
wanna
because
do-
like with
I wanna do it
beginners, right?
selectively.
Like they don't know all like
wanna
the
tackle one
terminology.
No, I know.
Yeah.
So I want to
Yeah.
like, I gotta get in there and make something that's accessible. Like I don't want to make tutorials for people who are pedants like me. I want to make
Yeah.
tutorials for people who are like excited to learn this stuff in the first
Great.
place.
So once
Because
I'm done with that,
Yeah,
I'm gonna take a
like, you
new
have
layer
to call
and
it
I'm gonna paint
a
some
shading
brighter highlights
tutorial.
in certain
Like, not a
areas. So I'm
rendering
gonna
tutorial.
no, this is how to blend
Right.
colors like
Shade
a
of the
pro
highlights,
for
which is
beginners.
pretty
This is a
much
good
white.
name.
And I'm gonna be
Yeah.
painting these highlights
Good ass video
in
name.
some of these areas that look almost like reflections.
I like capital
and
blend
then I'm gonna
colors.
be using the smudge
But
tool
I-
to get that
I
nice
dig that he's going back in with the paint brush tool and just hitting it with the highlights. Like,
Yeah.
there's no, it's not a special tool or technique or whatever. It's just hitting it with that paintbrush tool. Like, it's not only feels really good, but it also gives you good
Right.
results.
and it goes from sharp to blurry
Man's got a slippery
to
arm.
get the maximum realism.
Dude, man, this is
I can increase the brush size if I want a little more blend.
it's like that episode Always Sunny in Philadelphia where they have the invite to their club that's like it's supposed to be a muscular arm and it looks like a dick.
That's me whenever I draw sword hilt.
Bring
Yeah.
down the opacity of certain areas. And finally, I'm
I
going
wanna
to
try the mixer brush. This looks good.
The normal default soft round brush, keep the opacity very low, and paint some gradients.
I think the reason I'm not doing the mixer brush more is it's got too many properties. I don't know what any of the properties do, and it intimidates me.
To bring in some variation of colors and to sculpt a better, more 3D-ish form. Again, you might want to look at good references to get it accurately. Trying to paint those muscle
Is
strains
that the smudge?
in the shoulder.
No, this is paintbrush tool.
Finally,
It's just hitting it with the
some
default
highlight
soft
colors.
round brush.
Paint some extra highlights and bring some variation in the skin tone. And finally, I'm gonna choose a
do
darker shade,
Blending colors like a pro.
darker color of the
For
shadow
beginners.
color that we have, and paint some of the ambient occlusions and darker shadows. To again get a better variation of colors and a better quality lighting. It's very important to keep the opacity of the brush very low if you want a very clean and smooth rendering. So there we have it. And if you want to go an extra mile and want to draw some veins, then for that,
Hell yeah.
I
I want him slick and I want him veiny.
to very low and opacity.
Make sure it doesn't
And
look.
then
Make sure it looks like an
highlight
arm, not
colors
something
and
else,
paint
before you
it
do this
towards
step.
the
Otherwise,
shadow
it'll
area and
it'll
then
really.
pick the shadow
really look
color
like
and
that
paint
episode
it
of Always
at a
Sunny
bit
in
of depth
Philadelphia.
to the veins
Oh God.
to give them
Don't get banned off
volume
YouTube, Pete.
and some highlight as well. Some of the veins are going to be hard with hard edges, and some of them are going to be a bit soft. And this is completely
Some of them
optional.
are hard
It has
edges and
nothing
some
to
are
do
soft.
with
It's
the
there's no getting away
blending
from it.
tutorial, but again,
Officer, it was supposed to
goal
be an
should
arm.
always-
Honest.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Is like at a certain point they're like, well, what do you do? Well, there's the mixer brush and the soft brush and the smudge tool, and so like, what are you doing? And like, I'm trying to make some soft edges and some hard edges. It's like, yeah, that's kind of the whole game. It's like I want to make some soft edges and some hard edges. Like, what are we all doing here if not that?
speed, improve, and go to the next level. I'm erasing some of the areas to make it a bit soft. Some nice vascularity. So there we
Nice
have it, guys.
vascularity,
I
hell
hope
yeah.
This video was useful, and if you like my content, make sure to subscribe and click on the bell icon.
Oh man,
to
have
get
you seen
notified
there's
about upcoming
there's like an
videos.
Instagram
So thanks for
account
watching the video.
that just
and
like
that's it for now. See you on the next one.
draws portraits of all the fitness influencers on YouTube.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Yeah, and he's like kind of popular just because like they're all like, oh man.
No, I'm gonna do that. Now that I'm on Twitch, and I really do want to pick out some of my favorite Twitch people and do paintings of them, stylized paintings of them. Like, I know Wubby is a big Magic the Gathering fan. Making a good Wubby painting in the style of like Magic the Gathering would probably go over pretty well, you know?
Oh, if you drew him as like a 2/2 elf wizard with haste or whatever, like.
Oh yeah. No, it's like it's a slam dunk for content. So like I'm totally gonna do it at some point. We're getting a lot set up right now, so I'm like, you know, I'm not. I'll do it on stream. Wondering how long it takes him because this is one of the biggest issues I've had when trying my hand at digital painting. Making soft transitions is so hard when you have no idea about the program. 100%. Like it's like you see people do it and it looks like magic, and then you try to do it and it's just like whatever you touch is like worthless. Like there's a bunch of different ways to make soft edges and hard edges, but like because there's no singular unified way of doing it, it's really easy to get super confused. And if you're like not sure which ways like gel with your brain, because like the demonstrations that he made here of like the 4 different ways to do it, he didn't do it the way that I do it. So if I were to have and then I gave you another technique that would have been able to do it too using the mixer brush, or not mixer brush, with the healing brush. So it's like, okay, so where do you start? I don't think any of these are actually the place that you would start as a beginner for making that. I really think it's just like take a normal hard round brush, turn the flow down, and then like turn the opacity down a little bit. Turn the opacity down about halfway and turn the flow down like a lot. And then be patient. Mandalo is asking what my in-person convention itinerary is till the end of the year. I've got one convention the whole year, Lightbox Expo in Pasadena, California in October, mid-October. I am presenting. I have a table there. I'll have my books there. I'll be autographing stuff. Oh, okay. Juan Hai is saying, I never understood what flow does. I'm never going to get sick of doing this demo. Okay. So anybody who's been here for this before, I'm sorry.
Should be a video at some point.
I want to make a YouTube video like
early.
what does flow do and why is it going to make you a professional artist? Okay. We've got the same setup as we had in the demo here. With these, we want to blend through these two colors. And so I've got my default brush. Let's go through every parameter on it. It's only going to take us a second. I have shape dynamics set to where size jitter is set for pen pressure. That is to give me like pressure sensitivity changing the size. My brush tip shape, I've changed the spacing from 25% down to 5%. That is going to reduce the space between brush strokes. You can see how they're spaced so far apart. When they're over at 100%, they don't even overlap. The default's at 25% for some reason, which creates this like weird thing with these concentric circles that kind of overlap. It leaves this odd texture. I turn it down to 5% so that it gives you a nice smooth mark. And then I turn the flow down. The flow is up here. Its default is at 100%. That's what 100% flow looks like. And then when you turn the flow down to 10%, this is what it looks like. The difference is that you can see that the edges of the stroke and the terminals of the stroke soften out. It's not actually a soft brush because you can make a hard edge with it. But you can see that the ends of where the stroke are soften up. This means that the direction we're drawing the stroke actually matters because up and down and side to side actually draw different shaped strokes. That is it. That's all you need. And so here's what flow is doing. Okay, so we've got 100% opacity, 100% flow. Boom. Everything's totally solid. We turn the opacity down, let's say 50%. Oops, that was the wrong one. 50% flow. You can see that we're getting, I'm managing to fuck up the hotkeys here. There we go. You can see that we're getting the same color, but it's only coming in at 50% opacity. It's mixing them half and half, right? So, well, if that's what is flow doing exactly? Well, as we showed earlier, the stroke is not actually made up of one piece. It's actually a stamp that's hitting over and over and over again. Bop, 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 bop. Like a ton of little tiny... Oh, that's opacity. Shit. Okay. See the stroke. I'm gonna turn my spacing up. That'll illustrate it better. There we go. Okay. So you can see it's made up of these stamps that hit one at a time. Ba, 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 ba. As you make a stroke, it makes these stamps one over the other. You can see how at 100% flow, the stamps all come in at 100% opacity. But when we turn the flow down to 50%, each stamp inside of the brush actually comes in at 50% opacity, but they pile on top of each other until they reach wherever the opacity is set at. So the opacity is sort of the top limit of the stroke. So at 50% here, but you can see these strokes are piling up on top of each other inside the stroke. Each stamp is piling up to the opacity that's at the top here, and the individual opacity of every single stamp is the flow. So what it's doing is, if you have the flow down at 10%, it's meaning that you have to go over the same spot. You have to hit the same spot with a stamp like 10 times in order to get it all the way up to 100% opacity. So it's like it has to take a lot smaller steps to get all the way up, which means that like you have to go back and forth over the same area, and the beginning and end of the strokes are naturally going to receive fewer stamps because they don't overlap, because they border on an empty space. So you end up with these soft terminals at the beginning and edge of the stroke. That is my secret sauce. That is 100% of my secret sauce. So if I wanted to blend two areas together, I can turn the opacity down some. And as you see, I'm going side to side like this. If I wanted to eliminate this like in-between area, I can take one of these in-between colors, and at 100% opacity, you can see I can smush it out like this. And the edges of my stroke, because I'm going side to side, are actually ending in these smears. So even at 100% opacity, I don't end up with a perfectly hard edge. And so I can take that color and I can blend it down one more time. And I can slowly smush it out like this. And I'm not going to get a perfectly smooth transition. I'm going to get a painterly transition. And so it takes more strokes than something like the healing brush or the mixer brush. But what I end up with is something that has like my hand in it. The motion of my hand, the natural rhythm of my hand, is left as a pattern on here that's leaving this kind of like vibration that's very appealing to the eye. It adds a little bit of extra organicness and like natural look to it, and it creates a feeling that is like people generally like. You can go and smooth the shit out of it. You can go through and just keep piling in more and more strokes until you smooth out all the inconsistencies. But the inconsistencies are like, in my mind, very appealing, and something that I was specifically seeking out when I was developing this technique. Like, because I would see roughly painted like acrylic, and I would go, oh man, I love that look of these chunky, painty brush strokes. How do I replicate that? And so that's where I ended up developing this from, is the desire to keep things from smoothing out too much and being like, and maintaining imperfectness. So, yeah, it feels organic. I think it looks better like this than to use a smooth brush, and I that's what I do for everything. And then when I want to get smooth about it, I just spend more time with it. But like making something smooth is a choice. Making a hard edge is a choice. Making like a kind of chunky, looser stroke is a choice. The same brush does everything, and so it's a matter of how you move your hand and how you set the opacity that allows you to like make all kinds of different transitions naturally without having to like fiddle around with a ton of tools or learn a lot of technique. That's my preference. And you don't need to actually download any brushes or learn anything exotic in order to do it. All right. One of the chatters here had so what percentage flow and opacity would you recommend for a beginner? The default on my brush is 80% opacity, 10% flow, 5% spacing. And which brush is this? This is the hard round brush. It's got the size jitter turned on for the pressure sensitivity. So I can make a fine edge by pressing light and a hard area by pressing large area by pressing hard. Gives me a little bit extra control over like where my coverage is, and allows me to press nice and soft. So anyways, we had a chatter who had Baynard Wu gave us a tutorial to react to, so we're checking this out blind. World of Warcraft 10.0 key art speed painting. So this is less of a tutorial.
You might have to skip around on it because you're already at 3 hours now.
Okay. Oh, I see why you want to react, because he's really good at drawing and painting. I'll just show off. I'm going to turn down the epic music a little bit here. See, when you're drawing, it can be really, the earliest phase of the drawing, it's really nice to use a rougher brush generally, because then you don't get too precious about where any of the individual edges fall. Like, you're going to get more precise later on. You want a more general foggy idea of it, but you don't want to use something that's blurry. So using like a chunkier, rougher brush like that early on, something I've always enjoyed. All going straight into color. Pro move. I find it very tough. That looked like a multiply blending mode to establish the base tone there. And now this is just opaque, normal painting on top of it. He's got his color picker up full time. If you're going and just picking a lot of colors, it's probably easier to leave it on the interface like that. I don't do that, but it's like a totally reasonable choice. I just have a muscle memory for going over to the little picker on the toolbar. But if I were to ever work like this, I would probably leave it up. You see these textury brushes, this is the kind of thing, I need to find some of these. These sort of bandy textury brushes, I swear I've seen the same one around. I gotta figure out which pack that's in and grab one of those.
Well, while you were doing your demo, I was like digging through like Korean speed paintings and stuff like that. I found one of a guy making clouds by making little brush marks with a custom brush, and then just like selecting them and like transforming them into place, and then
All right.
like petting out some of the.
Send it to me on Discord. I'm gonna do that one last, and then we're gonna call it for the day.
All right. I don't know. It's just.
Don't apologize for it.
Guy painting really good.
Quit apologizing. Well, we're watching that right now too. I want to see your weird Korean tutorials.
I don't know. I just thought of this one because like, this guy uses the lasso tool for like everything. Like the whole painting is just like lasso something, pet it with a soft brush, lasso another thing, pet it with a soft brush. It probably takes him forever.
I don't know. I mean, that's pretty efficient. Like, because you have smooth transitions with hard edges 100% of the time when you do that.
Yeah.
You can get a lot done. I mean, it's a style I've been thinking about trying for the studies just for the sake of experimentation.
I mean, he gets good results.
So this guy's keeping his elements on separate layers. You can see here in the layer panel that, like, I mean, he's made a copy of the dragon for safety if he wants preserving an earlier version. But, you know, the girl is like in the cliff front. This is all being layered with like separate elements on separate layers. There's some professional clients that like they insist on this because it allows them to like keep the separate layers as like separate assets they can use for different marketing materials. So like if you're working as a commercial artist, like this can be a really good practice to do. I was asked to do this the last time I did like a piece of commercial art. And what I've tried to do get away with instead, and they never like this, is that I just want to paint it flat and then chop it up and paint behind. Because I have it like trying to maintain separate elements as separate layers for me is like such a bear that I find it's easier to just like do a bunch of work after the fact than to try to like maintain these as like separate things. Because I'll be in here and then I'll be like, oh, you know what would be cool is a little light hitting the neck, and then like I'd have to like go and find a layer and switch, and then find a layer and switch back. Like it just destroys my flow. Trying to stay focused on like one thing at a time, you know, prevents that from happening. But I'm too scatterbrained to like maintain that kind of attention on individual elements like this. I also tend to cheat with like trying to make sure the characters blend into the environment in a particular way. So like having the character look good on both the back with the dragon in the background and with the sky in the background, to me sounds like a huge challenge.
Yeah, I could never do this shit. I'm like you said.
No
I just
way,
keep
man.
jumping off like different parts of the painting from like left to right. Like, oh yeah, here. Oh, the mountain. No, the rocks. Oh, the person.
You're gonna be the best artist in here, man. This is the origin story of Alejandro.
I hope so.
Yeah, when you try to keep things on separate layers, then like when you start ending up with brushy stuff, like, oh, I've got this loose staff or whatever, at some point you just need to erase it and redraw it clean, or because there's no way that you're going to be able to like maintain like good separation between the front and background Oh, because like if I'm just gonna like sample the colors and blend them in, I'm gonna end up with like this big mushy patch, and then when I like put the dragon back on, it's gonna look like it blends into the background. Then you put the dragon back on, and it has this big mushy patch that like covers over it. So like you basically have to, like he did with the arm here, like erase out basically the whole thing and then redraw it clean, like up close.
I think another hard part about it is like making sure everything is rendered consistently.
Oh yeah, Greg Rutkowski has some of the color jitter brushes and textured mixer brushes are also included. I mean, his work's immaculate, so maybe I'll check out the Greg Rutkowski brush set. It was posted in the resources tab, so I might download it and give it a try. Oh yeah, see there's this, the whole staff got erased. I told you. It's like it's in there as a mock-up early on, but like if you want to get it clean, and on a separate layer, at a certain point you just have to like erase the whole thing and start over. Which is fine. It's just I get so annoyed at like having to like do that stuff over and over again. I just want to keep painting on the top.
I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out what the hell to do with painting. I've like done so many different processes and I just can't like settle on it.
The thing I'm not getting is like, how do you maintain hard edges with a brush that has a crunchy edge? Because like I can never seem to figure this out. That like people have these brushes that have these nice crunchy edges, but then they're also able to carve these nice hard ones in there. I don't know if they're switching back and forth between two different ones, or maybe they're just using it a slightly different way. Like this is the problem I was having today when I was trying to play with these different different like textured brushes, is that I wasn't able to carve edges with them, and it was leaving me feeling like I was only using half my toolkit. But yeah, being able to like define that chin nice and tight while still having like these crunchy patterns around, like you have to have control over your brush to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I think people are setting up their parameters differently than me or something, or like certain texture brushes do that, certain don't. It's still a little bit of a mystery to me.
Yeah, it like depends on the brush. Some of them, if
Yeah.
you like stroke with them, like the edge will be like hard. But if you like pet with them, you get like a soft edge. And other ones like, also like you can.
My one texture brush that I use, the sponge one, is able to carve hard edges as well as do crunchy bits. So I know it's possible. I just don't even know what the settings are that actually make it do that.
The other thing you can do is just like make the brush tiny and kind of like draw the edge.
I know. I was trying to do that, but like a lot of the texture stuff in Photoshop, when you make it really tiny, like the dual brush remains large, and so the crunchiness like remains. You just have like smaller bits of it forming.
Oh.
So I think it really depends on the parameters.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess there are some brushes where it's just like, nope, just not getting a hard edge out of this thing.
This is really good. Like being able to like get in there and do like loosely blocked in guys that are all slightly different shapes to get a like loose sense of a bunch of dragons without going in and meticulously drawing every detail on them is something that I've always had a great deal of difficulty with. So I'm always impressed by it whenever I see it. It's just one more of those things that I feel like I've got to like learn one of these days how to be better at sort of suggesting detail. Yeah, when you got it on separate layers like that, you're able to move those elements around a lot easier. Whoa, what was that? What's going on there? All the UI's in Chinese, so I can't tell what blending mode that is.
Yeah. Trust me, man. The worst when you're like a weeb trying to figure out how to draw for the Japanese internet. Like, okay, that was like some kind of blending mode shit that made it like add brightness.
Yeah.
I guess I just have to.
Did
like,
you link? Did you link to me or what? I didn't get.
Oh, it's in the chat. Sorry.
In the chat.
I'll link it to you.
Okay, great. Oh, hell yeah.
I wonder how he set up the perspective so well, though.
Yeah. I mean, you don't need to nail the perspective on a shot like this. Like, you just need a general sense of where the horizon line is, so you can get repeated details like the wings. Because, like, I'm not convinced that the perspective on the wings is even accurate, which wouldn't be necessary if they're not in this. But, like, that's the sort of thing, like, I'm not convinced that the line here actually even runs correctly on the perspective. But, like, if the rear wing is in a slightly different pose, then it wouldn't even matter because they wouldn't necessarily even line up. But, like, I sometimes have a kind of a bad sense of it, but, like, because there's very few points that, like, recede one into the other that's, like, a repetition, then you don't actually need to, like, nail the perspective on it. Like, one of the most important things in the scene that the perspective reads on is the curvature on the clouds would need to kind of conform to the correct perspective to feel like it's right. So it's just kind of a vibe thing. You know, he even like cloned the horn on one side for the other because it's like, it's not even in perspective. It's totally flat to the viewer. And the same thing's kind of happening with the ears as well. Like, there's very little like specific perspective that needs to get done. Dogan, who's the artist here, says, in brush settings, texture, you need to scale down the brush texture. From there, you can be able to use the crunchy smaller so that you can blend the brush strokes better. Some brushes need that. Yeah, so like the thing I might need to be doing with it is, instead of scaling the brush itself, scale down the dual brush that's hidden in the settings. So it can be made to like blend better and be able to carve edges better. Oh, this is cool. Nice chunky square brush to create some free texture. Dig that. Yeah, being able to start with something that's like crunchy and textured means that like if there's not a need for it to be a specific shape, you're able to like do a lot less work, because you're going to want to define it into whatever material it's going to be at some point. But like you can leave a lot of the randomness that's already there and be able to get away with that. So like as a first step, it just gets you like closer to where you're going to end up. If it has dual brush setting, it's the same thing. Huh. Yeah, I guess I don't spend since I use so few brushes, like I have a cursory understanding of the inside of the brush panel, but like I don't actually play with the parameters that much. So I need to maybe jump in there and take a closer look.
It's funny how it says speed painting.
Oh yeah, I mean speed painting, but it's just a really, really long painting. The whole thing's an hour long. We're not gonna be able to watch the whole thing. I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit towards the end. This is really cool. For React stuff, I don't think we're gonna be able to watch like a whole hour long video. Oh man. What does the dual brush do? Dual brush is like where there's like scattering on like the main brush and there's a scattering on a secondary brush, and they like where they overlap is where the mark is actually made. So it's able to make something that feels more naturally chaotic than like, you know, when Photoshop's making a brush mark, it's just one stamp that's stamping over and over and over again. So even if you rotate it and change sides and stuff, it's still going to look like one stamp that's repeated. What dual brush does is, because the patterns of two like shapes overlapping can actually create like genuine, more chaotic looking patterns, so that it creates what appears to be natural texture. But like yeah, a huge percentage of this thing, and this is I mean key art for World of Warcraft, so this is like top level professional painting. The vast majority of it appears to be a handful of brushes and a whole shitload of manual painting without like a ton of... Oh, I was saying that the perspective on the wings was maybe a little bit off, and here he goes fixing it. But yeah, it's just a lot of manual painting, just a lot of opaque painting on like normal layers. Like nothing really fancy happening. It's just like a lot of very good artistic fundamentals on display and a, you know, professional level of patience. that is, at the end of the day, what most people who are professional artists do. There's all kinds of cool tricks that you can use to shortcut some processes and add some extra flavor. But the vast majority of like digital painting is just like traditional painting, except for you can do shit like that, where you go, the perspective of that wing was feeling fucked up to me, and then you just like, or like flip the whole canvas. Oh, there's some blending modes. See, he's bringing it up on a clipping mask there, bringing it in, changing the blending mode, adding a little maybe like overlay or whatever to like relight the dragon a little bit. Because like this is the thing I don't get about traditional painting is how you would do something like that. You can do it a certain amount with glazes, but like when you want to just like sculpt the form kind of generally a little bit, like doing that with a glaze and like a fan brush, to me feels like dangerous and mysterious. Doing it digitally with like a blending mode and a clipping mask and be able to flip it on and off to make sure you're not screwing the painting up, that's like true luxury. But
yeah, adjusting my values with like a multiply layer after the fact was like a big moment for me. I discovered like, oh, you can just like change your values in selective areas of the piece without like screwing up the structure too much.
Yeah, keeping stuff nice and soft between where the two figures are overlapping, specifically using mushier brushes and like keeping everything soft over there is going to increase the readability a lot, especially because you can see how hard the edge is on here. Like keeping the lighting across the edge of the figure there to really cut that silhouette super hard against the darker, mushier background is going to do a lot of work, because like the name of the game with a lot of fantasy art is readability. And so you're looking for how to make areas of overlap read really good. Because like if you were to just treat everything the same, you would have these you would have all these muscles and dragon scales and stuff all the way across there. And like you'd say, oh, it's more detail, it's more accuracy, it's looking better. But like this looks better. It looks better to me, be more selective and choose to make areas softer and mushier and less clear. Because they exist in a context. And like the same is true if you're doing 3D or photography. It's just that you're using a different set of skills in order to like still craft those same overlaps and to create that same legibility. It's really easy to do in painting because you just get to, make, instead of having to light stuff different or put like dust in the air or whatever, you can just draw it mushy and never justify it, and like it'll read better and it'll look good. Oh, nice rainbow over here. Very cool. This came out great. Thank you so much for sharing this. I am going to look at this one last tutorial before we get out of here, so I don't keep Dustin too long. This thumbnail, this name and thumbnail, I can see what you mean. This is amazing. Okay. Initial read, like there's okay, this is just speed painting. This is like sped up to a crazy degree. My initial read on this, like everything's being drawn in digitally because of how like wobbly it all is with like really hard solid brush. And then the rendering is being done in this like insanely soft way where they might actually be using a soft brush. There is something about like there's like a certain Asian art style that like where it's this like complement of like really, really like tight, hard edges and like hard materials with like a super soft focus on things like skin tone that is like, it has this very, very specific look to it. And before this thing's even finished, it's already got that feeling of like that airbrushy, super soft look. I don't think that's blending modes. I don't think that that's any kind of fancy tools. I think that's just a byproduct of technique. Like, and then when you've got like these harder edges, like between the boobs here or whatever, I think this is just a lasso tool with soft brush.
Yep, you're exactly right. You will see in a second.
Am I exactly right?
Exactly what you said. Yeah.
Yeah. Do they lay out their flats? Do they do a flat silhouette that's like super clean at some point during the process?
It looks to me like this guy has some clipping masks in place as he does.
He's got this big clipping mask stack that's going. I'm not sure what this element is.
Yeah, I think the wings are a clipping mask. I think the body's like a clipping mask. There might be some other things.
Oh, but yeah, you're right. It's like all lasso. Man, he's got. You can see how fast it's moving between these different things. This is like all muscle memory hotkeys. When you get muscle memory going, but it's also sped up. This is sped up way faster than the last one.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
this is a more time-consuming method than was it Bayard? Bayard? The Bayard Wu's method. Because of how little progress is being made, despite the fact that we can see how fast the cursor's going, this has got to be 20x at least. Because I've done some speed ups on my own stuff, and this is really, really sped up, and it's still going slow.
Yeah.
And all these little subdivisions on like a neck piece or whatever. Oh my god! Just design it better. It's like not like okay. I'm gonna be shit talking this. There's a lot going on here that's like really high level, and they're putting a ton of work into it. But like this is not a design. This is just shapes, right? This is not These are not complementary flowing lines. This is not of anything. It's not intended to look like anything. This is just a shape mush. This is like a shape language that is, I mean, ultimately it's forming a silhouette, which is quite nice, but all the interior subdivisions are not adding up to any kind of design. They're just random filigree. And to spend that level of time to try to make that like something that's that random, like, because you're not rewarding the viewer for going in and exploring this and going like, oh my god, there's like a whole little scene where like a whale is being chased by a tiger or whatever. Like there's a lot of times where people will do all this tiny detail, but then when you go and look at it, it's like creating all these little interesting motifs, and it's creating like extra little bit of intricacies on like how functional it is. But then there is this style that is all about trying to make a bunch of random subdivisions that are just all mushy nonsense. And this is like nowadays it's just get an AI to do it. Like doing it this level of manualness, but not having it add up to anything other than random shape subdivisions, to me has always driven me crazy. Oh, at least in this case he's like copying it and pasting it to try to like save himself on a little bit of time. Boy, this is an insane workflow.
There's oh god, like I think about like 4 years ago. I was
What?
like,
Whoa! What was that? What did he just do? I've officially time traveled back into your perspective here. What was that menu?
Yeah, I don't fucking know.
I'm gonna pause it when that shit pops up. It was only there for a second because this is so sped up.
No, dude, this was me 4 years ago, just like trying to pause it.
That's what I'm
and,
saying.
Like, catch the thing to
What?
try to figure out. Yeah.
Okay, this is like the layer styles. The bevel. This is bevel and emboss. So using bevel and emboss to try to like auto create bevels on this little armor subdivision. Oh my god! I've tried this. It's like theoretically possible. It's easier to just paint it.
There's actually artists who like do like a huge percentage of their painting by like adjusting like color curves and stuff like that in like arcane menus and things like that. You know what the weirdest thing I've ever seen?
I've seen a lot of arcane menus. Like I recognize most arcane menus in Photoshop, but like you don't get a lot of value out of the bevel and emboss like layer style. All right, what were you saying?
Just I don't remember what I was saying, but there was another thing I wanted to say, so I'm just gonna say that instead.
Okay.
One of the weirdest things I've seen is the Taylor Payton guy you were mentoring selecting numerical values to pick his colors in the color picker.
Oh yeah. No, but I understand. I relate to that. Okay, he's back in the layer styles menu again. Let me show everybody what layer styles are. All right. So like, let's make a new layer here because you have to do it on a layer in isolation. So like if you make like a random shape or whatever, and you fill it with 50% gray, right? You can go down into the layers, the layer styles where it says FX here, and you can add like, and so these are mostly for graphic design, but like you can make something look kind of 3D cheap.
Oh my.
And then there's these parameters in here where you can like sort of change, and like I use these all the time for when I'm doing like graphic design. Like if you want to, there's a bunch of effects that are way easier to do doing like a layer effect like this, a layer style. Then, and like, you know, there's a lot of controls you can have over it. And then, what do I want with this thing? And you can see, you can like, look at this is kind of interesting, right? Like it's doing something kind of dynamic when you start getting in here and really messing with these. So I could see somebody like attempting to play with it for the sake of like, hey, I just want to like make something feel 3D but instantaneously for cheap. Like kind of, but it doesn't actually create like a realistic sense of lighting ever, no matter what you do to it. So it's not like a replicatable like tool to use to, unless your whole style is about, you know, having these little highlights and shadows on things. Trying to add, because like these stick to the layer, and only on one little layer. You can clone them across layers, so like you can go and drag them and clone them onto other layers and stuff. But like basically what he's doing is he's doing this, and then he is like merging it down on, and he's got something below it, and then he's merging them together to flatten them and like get rid of the layer style, and then painting more on top of it or whatever. It's, I don't know. The more time I think about it, the more I think it might be a semi-legitimate way of working. But like, especially if you need to add a lot of little highlights and shadows to a lot of little pieces of crap all over your armor. But it's like he's spending a lot of time being really fiddly about it, only to have it get merged down anyway.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like later on, he's gonna start like doing all this stuff and then just like painting over it.
Yeah,
like,
because you're going to have to paint
different.
into it to get it to all feel coherent, like as part of the same thing anyway, because you don't have any control. You have very little control over colors and stuff. You have to end up clicking through so many menus or whatever to make marks. You might as well just draw it.
Back in the day, I used to feel bad about like not painting like this because I saw so many artists I liked like doing weird shit like this. And I was like, I can't even figure out what the menus are. Like,
I know what all the menus are here. Like this isn't. Oh, it's kind of good. Wait, it's all added up. It's kind of good, but I just feel like it would have been easier to draw it still.
Yeah.
That little piece of crap that he has on the front of the armor there is like kind of cool looking, but it's so small.
Yeah.
Trying to add that level of detail to something that small doesn't feel like a professional flourish to me. That feels like a huge waste of time.
What's it called? I'm looking at the way it renders it, and it feels like, you know, Blender's Eevee mode, like for rendering.
No, I don't know anything about Blender.
Oh, no, it has that exact same method of blending. It's like the cheaper.
No, but I like this thing that he just did there, where he lassoed the bottom of the butt.
Yeah.
He lassoed the bottom of the butt and then hit it with the soft brush to get like a soft transition across the whole butt with that one cut in it. Like that's fast, but that's faster than what I would do. And then he just went over it really quick and just tapped it a couple of times with a brush to like smooth out all the weird tool marks that are left over from the lasso.
Yeah. Yeah, and it looks really good. Like when you like take just the lasso tool and then
this
like,
thing he's doing where he's
soft
making one
brush.
little shape and then like either mirroring it or cloning it or whatever. Like, oh, that's so funny. He's okay. So one of the layer styles you can do is just puts a stroke on the edge of it. So like instead of drawing, like he's just like making a shape and then adding all like layer styles, and then he ended up deleting it anyway to make like chain links. Oh, okay. And then just mass transforming the whole thing. It's got a really digitally look to it. There was I feel like there was a period in the 90s where this was like the thing. Because it was like people using digital tools was fresh. And so it looked like high quality and like innovative. And then okay. And then throwing some blending. Then he's like throwing some, like a new layer with some stripes of color on a blending mode over the top of it to give it a little extra dimension so it doesn't look flat.
Yeah, probably color dodge.
And then he's having to fiddle with it a lot to get it to feel right. And then a copy of it and then like turn with the brightness turned all the way down to form a cast shadow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have gone in there with a brush tool and done that, and it would have looked messier. That I would say is working smart. This feels so. I do wonder if the artist who's doing this is like enjoying this, because like to me, like defining all these little edges and transitions and stuff feels good. That's one of the reasons I paint so much, is because I like the process of painting. To me, this looks like a chore. This looks like punishment. I do but I wonder if like there's something about it that like tickles the artist in a particular way, because
this guy's particular.
It's really efficient at making certain types of effects, but it makes me was that chainmail underneath there?
I kind of like it.
Yeah, I like
back into layer styles. Oh my god. Oh, and then you just add a little highlight on. You flatten it down, add a couple of highlights.
So like the thing that like I've never been able to wrap my head around about this is how do you transition from like drawing and painting like a normal person to this? It's just so like counterintuitive. You know?
How do you descend in this level of degeneracy? Is what you're asking?
Yeah, because like
I think you start here. I think you start on a lower level of this, and you move your way up to like an extremely high level of this, because this is layers of. There's a lot of different like skills and tools on display.
Yeah.
So it's like there's a lot of hours spent to develop this skill set. Like clearly.
When he was just like a little kid, just like lassoing everything with a soft brush.
When I was a kid growing up, my parents always told me I loved the lasso tool, even when I was a child.
Yeah. But it's all in Korean, so we'll never know.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Interviews with him.
it's like.
About the lasso tool the whole time.
But that's the thing, is like if you're doing a style where you need to have a ton of really tight edges because you've got a bunch of little bits of crap, like that the armor's made out of a bunch of little bits of random like pointy crap all the time, like trying to define all those hard edges the way I've demonstrated using like a brush tool and like running the brush across the length of the edge is so time consuming that it actually like this looks more, I mean, just using the lasso is more efficient. But there's something that hurts my brain a little bit about like lassoing out these silhouettes and then using layer styles to try to bevel and emboss them into like halfway into painting. Because there's no way you could make lighting that is consistent across the length of the figure. You can make the lighting consistent on any one individual moment in the painting, but not across the whole thing using this method, which is a style. Like it leads to the whole piece having this like more textural look, because you don't have these transitions of lighting that run across the length of the figure, you know, because like you would have to be adjusting the technique bit by bit over the length of the whole figure and have, but he's so zoomed in and he's working on these tiny little bits so close up, you never would get enough context to be able to make those kinds of like larger transitions.
Yeah. Although I feel like a lot of art, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I feel like a lot of art is just like adapting to whatever weird decisions you've committed to.
Like you commit, like I'm going to be the lasso tool guy, and then you're just like, let's see how far we can go with this piece of shit.
Yeah, yeah, and it's got drawbacks, but you just kind of adapt to them.
It's-
and so you're thinking like,
Oh, this
you
is
know,
so
there's
interesting.
no
It looks
way.
almost like a weird 3D render.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
It's
I
like
was
it's giving
wait,
this like weird kind of like lo-fi rendering look. Like it's a 3D model, but it's rendered with like a really old school looking shader.
Yeah. That's why it's
Yeah,
so hard
it
to
was
give
giving me like
advice.
World of Warcraft.
It's like you tell people like, don't ever do this thing. There's always some guy.
Oh,
out
there's always
there
some guy
who's,
that's doing
like,
that.
top-tier pro
And then
who's
like
doing-
is like a
yeah.
professional artist who has incredible results that somebody like to somebody is like the greatest artist in the world. So you're like, okay, well, most people don't do that. And like
Like if you had a student who for some reason thought that like layer styles was like the greatest thing ever and they wanted to do their entire painting with layer styles, you'd tell them to knock it off, right? But like this guy seems to be like
I think
constantly
so when I'm mentoring somebody, I'm always trying to figure out like what comes to them naturally to just try to encourage them to do like 10 times more of that. And so if they were like, I just use the lasso tool and like blending and like layer styles to like do all the rendering, I'd probably be like, all right, show me. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? But like, I wouldn't say like, don't ever do that. Like, I would say like, prove to me that you're doing it for a reason.
Yeah, although I feel like there has to also have been a phase where this guy just like sucked at this. You know?
Oh yeah.
Like, cause like I think like you keep telling me that like my drawings are good, but I suck at painting, right? Like, but like there was a period where like you would have told me the opposite. Like if you had like caught me at the right point in my development.
Yeah, maybe.
There was a period where my drawings were god awful and like my painting was kind of okay-ish for where I was at.
Trying to get each individual element rendered, like defining the silhouette of it, defining all the lighting, all the color, all the effects on it, all individually as like separate elements, one at a time. Some people work like that. I've seen people do that in watercolor. It's like possible to do in traditional media. It's possible to do digitally. It like I don't relate to it at all. I'm not going to say it's a bad thing. I'm just going to say I don't relate to it. I don't understand it. That's how some people think through paintings, and it like it's mind-boggling to me, and I think it's a rarity. But like that's what's happening here, and this is not an example of how like if you're a beginner and you're trying to figure out what works for you, don't start here. But for some people, especially in certain industries, like I think for like the casino industry, I think that a look like this probably works pretty well. Or maybe for like certain brands of mobile games, like this is the look that they want, and so it might actually be like they might be an excellent fit for that space.
I'm like fucking tripping balls looking at this. I'm like,
But this is like, you know, for this one anime booba lady with like armor that's way too pointy, this looks like it's a 100-hour project because it's like we're looking at 20 minutes, but it's this look. I mean, maybe not 100 hours, but like for what's 400 minutes in hours?
400
Six.
minutes.
So if this is 20 times, then we'd be looking at this segment would be a 6-hour session.
Yeah, and it's like we're only getting like a tiny bit. Like
We're getting a tiny bit of the overall process. This might be a 40-hour project. Oh my god.
Yeah.
There's lasso tool happening on the nose. What the fuck?
There's lasso tool happening everywhere.
The amount of masks, like, how do you not get lost in your layers? Wait, what number layer are they on?
And then it seems like the layers are just matching individual elements. So they're like, they've got a bunch of layers that are all kind of piling up on the skin tone that look like they're probably going to get mushed down into just the skin layer.
But like the thing that's like, I don't know,
This is
so
interesting.
funny.
They're like drawing in like a harder drawing, and I'm not sure if they're erasing it out or if they're just trying to find their way around the painting.
Well, I think the way this guy started out, there's a lot of artists who have like sort of a style similar to this, where like they'll kind of start out their paintings by using the soft brush, basically, like the airbrush, and like just like a hard round brush with some size jitter on it at like a small size, and they just like flip back and forth between those two tools and like do a really messy drawing and kind of like build it up gradually, going straight into color and stuff. And then they have like a messy version of like their thing, and then they kind of like neaten up the edges, turn some of it into clipping masks or whatever, and then start doing the like lasso thing, or whatever they do for rendering stuff. It looks like that's probably how this guy started. I'm seeing like
the amount of lasso work is blowing my mind.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how they did the eyelashes. Like, is that the one time where they said, "I'm just going to brush that in with a regular brush"?
Yeah. In this phase, like, there's actually a pretty decent amount of like lasso this, lasso that, and then spend a few minutes just like petting away.
Dude,
with, like,
that before and after on all those adjustments on the eyes and stuff, I have no idea where that added.
I mean, sometimes you just gotta like move your eye a little bit.
Yeah. But I mean, they're the one with the vision here.
Yeah.
All right, so they're getting into like a precise drawing. They're like almost like inking.
Yeah.
Is this going to go on top of the thing, or is this under paint? Is this or underneath?
Dude, I really want to show you the video I found. I can't find it. I know the channel it's on, but I have to scroll through like.
We have to do it. We have to do it some other time because I got to log out after we're done looking at this. This is
okay. Yeah. Yeah, but it's the one where like the guy did like a finished painting, and then did line art over top of it, and then did a finished painting under the line art, and then did a finished painting over the line art and the two finished paintings.
Oh yeah. Wait, we just jumped forward a ton because the hair transformed totally.
And
So we have no sense of how much time is being spent here. Like, was that hair done with just tons and tons of lasso and soft brush?
Yep.
Yeah. I've seen this guy paint hair before. That is exactly what
All right, we're getting ready to raid here. We're gonna be raiding Jay Stiller 30. Pop in there for a second. Take a look.
It's like,
Oh, he's up to some
they're
painting,
eth-
proper
they're
painting.
ethical.
Yeah, there's a point at the end
Fantasy
here too where he
environments.
starts making clouds by just like making a brush stroke and then like with a custom brush and then just like making it huge and like transforming it a bit.
Please don't ever paint like this, Jazz.
Oh wait, he added cloth over all the boobs and stuff after all that. Oh my god.
Yep.
This is so much effort. This is not the style I like at all. Like there's so much precision and so much effort going into this. But the look of where all the armor looks like it's not being lit for real. It's being kind of just like a texture. It's like it all blends together in the eye anyway. So all the time spent on all those little edges and everything feels like it's gone completely to waste.
Yeah. He's got a cool gauntlet.
Tremendous amount of time spent on stuff. The way he's painting the background in is kind of cool. I like how.
Yeah.
This is an interesting method.
I like the amount of time spent on the character relative to the background. Can relate.
You just spent like 100 hours in the
I'm
character.
just flabbergasted. This looks like so hard to work this way. So incredibly hard to work this way.
It feels like it looks like pain. It's giving me like pain. Mental
Oh
pain.
wait, I like the effects. He's got this blur thing. Oh, it's all getting smashed down into a background layer. Look at that. Oh my god. I sure hope you saved out a separate version. This is all on one layer now. Don't fuck it up now, bro. Don't have like a weird brush stroke somewhere because you've got another 1,000 hours of lasso tool to undo it all. I would never smash that character into that background. Don't you want to have that as like a separate asset? Like all that blurry background shit? You're never going to be able to cut that back out with the lasso tool. Look at all those little windows in the hair and stuff.
Okay, so Pete, imagine me like 4 or 5 years ago, having no idea to paint and being like, I should look at Korean tutorials.
Oh,
on YouTube.
I should figure out. This is how the real people paint. This is how real artists work.
And seeing this and being like, what the fuck? How do I even?
It's a really interesting process. It's, I think, especially instructive from like if you look at it from like a, hey, here's a different way of thinking about how we make images digitally. Like, it's interesting, but it's not. Yeah, if you presume that like what you do is shitty and this is like high level and you should throw away everything you're currently doing and start over to work like this, you are gonna have a bad time. You're gonna have a really bad time.
I didn't have a good time.
Yeah.
I think the main takeaway is that there's a whole spectrum out there of artistic brains.
Yeah, there's a whole spectrum of artistic brains out there in the world, and I want to respect every one of them, but like I don't relate to all of them. And that's my main point. Like, I think if you're a beginner and you're thinking about how do I get in there and make the art like the cool people do, because artists are the coolest people, just use the gosh darn brush tool. Just use the round brush and just draw. It's like, it's really fun, I swear. And if it looks like mushy and weird and bad, that's fine. Like, post it anyway. It's great. You're going to love painting by just painting instead of like making everything with like a soft brush and a lasso tool and like layer styles. I cannot. The only thing I'm gonna I don't. There's a lot here that sounds like criticism. A lot of it is just confusion, and like the one thing I'm gonna say that I sure hope there's another version that's layered where the effects and the character in the background are separate, because the idea they went through all of that and then baked all of the effects in at the end and flattened it all into the background makes me feel kind of sick to my stomach. Because I'm like, but you can never get it back. Like, if you wanted to like adjust any of those effects, or if you wanted to like have the character off the background, it's just gone. And the process to like get back to that point is like as time consuming as creating it in the first place. So it's just like, oh, I'm just going to delete all my source files is what it looks like to me. I'm assuming they had like a copy, because that would be, it makes me feel dizzy thinking about the number of hours that are basically just getting wiped out by that.
I think actually they probably don't have a copy because he's just thanking God he's finished. You know?
he's like, well, this piece of shit is never going to be on my desk again. See ya. I doubt it. I doubt it. Like, you don't put that many hours into anything and not have some emotional attachment to it. That they've got to have another file. They've got to.
I actually always have like 30 versions of my thing saved because I'm so paranoid about like.
I've seen it.
Stuff.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
A lot of people do that. I don't do that
version
because
30.
my layer stack allows me to have that history baked into the layer stack. I don't have to do that. Anyways, we're going to raid Jay Stiller 30, and I'm gonna log out. Thanks everyone for joining me. I'll see you over on the other side.
Oh man.
Yo, Jazz, I want to check out that video. The guy who just did the paint overs over the line art and the paint over the line art.
Oh yeah. I'll try to find it. There's also a guy who does the lasso tool airbrush thing, but he's fast. Like, he's not spending like 100 hours. He's spending like 2 hours.
I'm gonna log out so I can hear this guy talking in case he's talking to me during the thing. All right, bye bye.